I'd like to call the meeting of April 4th, 2024, Planning Commission meeting. First of all, I'd like to have everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do the roll call.
Ms. Knable?
Here.
Ms. Dobson?
Here.
Mr. Earhart?
Here.
Mr. Mitchell? Mr. Aravallo?
Here.
Ms. Dominic? Mr. Sly?
Here.
Ms. Squire? Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of agenda. I understand we may need to add one item.
Yes, item number 5, it'll be a fence variance.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move we add number 5 for a fence variance as a formal action item.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Do we need to approve the agenda as amended? Okay,
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second it. All those in favor, let's start on the left.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Agenda approved. Six, zero, zero.
Mr. Chairman, is it okay to recognize?
Yes.
Thank you. Debbie, sure.
Ms. Dominic arrived at 7:03.
Okay,
We have a motion.
no,
Vice Chair, I move
we're approving the minutes.
that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 2, revised preliminary plat for Garrett Ranch.
Sorry. I have so many papers. Okay, this is a revision of preliminary plat for Garrett Ranch at the northeast corner of 199th and Ridgeview Road. The applicant is Gatton Properties, Dan Quinn. The total number of lots is 381. 265 of those are connected living and 116 single-family on 80-plus acres with RP3 zoning. The applicant has submitted a revised preliminary plat. The proposed revision plat contains 87 connected living lots and 117 single-family lots totaling 204 residential lots. The current plan was approved with 194 total residential lots, so approximately 9 of those lots have been reduced from about 70 foot to 60, 61 foot, which is still within the requirements of the zoning. Staff is requesting action by the Planning Commission to approve the revised portion of the preliminary plat for Garrett Ranch. There are representatives here if you have any questions that we can't answer.
Okay. Now, there's only certain lots that they're reducing.
Yes, so, I believe all the top row, has been reduced. About 9 of those lots. Over there, with the blue outline is what has been, revised.
And the 87 connected living, what does that mean? Like duplexes or townhomes?
I'm not, is it townhomes? Townhomes,
Yeah, the townhome area.
on the left of that.
Most likely that'll come back in again, and of course we have to do the final one also.
Yes.
It's currently an RP three though.
Yes, all of it is.
So on the very south side, it looks like that some of the lots were added within the detention cell area. Has engineering been able to confirm that all the detention is still,
Yes,
they're
and,
detaining what's required? Because it looks like the detention cells shrunk.
yes, and that is one of the reasons for the additional lots. Obviously, a preliminary plat, and then they go through and start refining all the detentions and calculations and everything. So, yes, everything, and I did speak to Dan Miller for quite a while on this, and everything's met.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Have a motion?
Motion to recommend approval of revised preliminary plat 23-2022 for Garrett Ranch.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I think I have to abstain, Mr. Chairman, because originally I abstained from the rezoning, right? I was told I have to, I can't vote.
No, so we're on a separate issue from the rezoning now. It's been rezoned, so that said, it's a personal call. If you feel like you want to abstain from this, that won't affect it.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So it's 5-0-1. Okay, next item. Final plat application, Garrett Ranch.
Yep, so this is the final plat, second final plat for Garrett Ranch, RP3. This is about 16.9 acres, 67 lots. Applicant has submitted a request for the final plat of Garrett Ranch second plat located at 199th and Ridgeview. The property is currently zoned RP3, which is planned multifamily district. However, the final plat phase 2 is for 67, sorry, single-family lots. The second plat contains 67 residential lots on 16.9 plus acres. Staff did the following review per the section 17.372D of the subdivision regulations. I can go through those if you want me to. The proposed plat is in conformance with the Spring Hill Comprehensive Plan. Utility easements are shown with dimensions meeting the minimum easement requirements for the city. The city will provide sanitary sewer to the development. The plat was sent out to city staff and consultants for a review. The review comments from the government agencies, consultants, and the utility providers have been or will be implemented as applicable to the plan. The minimum easement requirements for the city and the locations will be addressed. Additional easements will be required and addressed during the infrastructure construction design process. Upon review of the final plat application, the planning commission may by a majority vote recommend approval, recommend denial, or table it. If approved, this plat would go to the, be presented to the governing body. And there is a suggested motion.
Any questions?
Move that we recommend, petition 146-2024 for final plat of Garrett Ridge.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's start the vote on the left.
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. 5-0-1.
I think it's 6-0.
Oh, 6-0.
Sorry.
Okay. Item,
Number 5 here.
So before you, you have the proposed bylaw revisions that were discussed at the last meeting. The only real revision was in Article 3. Just noting that the agendas will be sent to you by email. You can see the small little red line on the second page.
I move that we accept the revised bylaws as presented.
I'll second it.
okay. Any questions? Any? Very, very limited revisions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, I did notice you have my name listed there in front of Troy's. You need to take that out on the page 3. Sorry, just a typo there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I just thought, isn't that his first name?
Or should I sign it too?
No, that's his legal name.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I was,
that's your legal.
yeah, that's the legal
Oh,
name.
okay. I did not know.
Yep.
Okay, so I strike that,
Just kidding.
Okay.
because that's how I spell my first name, so I thought it was just
Oh, yeah, no.
from the previous one.
You want to go to agenda item 5?
Yes, so, Pat, do you want me to go ahead and do this?
She's like
One.
9 foot tall. Yeah.
So we received a fence application for Bedrock Concrete to put up a fence around the perimeter of their property. Part of that is a 6-foot tall fence, which was approved with the site plan. They also would like to add 8 foot on the north side to separate them from the adjacent property to the north of them. Our municipal code only states 6 foot.
That's along the green line that shows on the map.
Yeah, so, yep, so the north side, they're gonna put an 8 foot all along that north side, and then the west and east and south will be 6 foot.
Okay. Any questions, concerns?
And beyond that, on the north side, even beyond that adjacent property, there are homes, so that will help screen it better for those residential areas.
What does the fence look like? Is it, like a privacy fence? Is it just chain link?
Sure, it's a chain link with a cloth completely through it. Whether it's over the top of it or wound into it, I'm not sure about that. It is still the same fencing materials and all that was approved at the site plan.
Okay.
They just want to increase it 2 foot.
Okay.
And, you know, obviously, those that you've been out there, this is kind of a two-way fence here. Protects their property also, but then also down on the west side, it will screen some from those residents also for Bedrock, so.
It could be those woven slats through this chain link too, right?
They're actually, yes, but no, it's actually a material.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have the specs on it, so.
Okay, okay.
You are correct, a lot of them do use that.
I
apologize. I wasn't here whenever you guys looked at this fencing before. So I guess I can't really visualize. I know that there are residents that are right to the west of this. What does that, I mean, you were saying that there's material in the chain linking fence?
It's a chain link fence and it has a cloth material on it. I mean, you can even get it where,
Is it like a windscreen you see on tennis fences?
that's correct, exactly. And you can get it with, you know, where it looks like camouflage or looks like trees, actually. Some of them look like trees. So, and this was a hard site anyway, due to it is so down and everything's up. So no matter what you did in there, I mean, I don't believe a 30-foot fence would.
Okay.
Cover it
Well,
up.
just think about it. You guys have driven by it, honestly. So, what they're trying to do, and they were trying to do this in the site plan, is protect as much as they can from the neighborhood and then also them from the neighbor.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Any other comments, concerns? Not, do we have a motion?
Thank you.
I mean, what's the motion to amend the,
I don't recall talking about the type of fence either, so I don't know if I was here, I just missed that part, but, is that something we typically discuss, is the type of fence that goes in?
It's typically on their site plan.
Uh-huh.
So they do have the 6-foot tall fence. I don't know that the type of material is on there. It may be. Some of this is really small for even my eyes. But I believe.
I don't remember us having a lengthy discussion about the
Yeah,
type of fence.
no.
yeah.
And we discussed the fact that they were gonna fence it.
Right, and I actually
Wow.
believe that they submitted the type of fencing and, all in the building permit application part of it.
Yeah.
I just don't recall that conversation, but, I guess with Kat as well, just thinking about the homes that are on the other side of that, and I apologize, I'm unfamiliar with which homes are actually over there, whether that would be an eyesore, but I guess if we've approved it before, what's an additional 2 feet? I just don't recall talking specifically about the fence.
Yeah, especially the ones to the north, you know, this property sits on the south side of the junkyard,
Yeah.
Okay,
so.
but there are no homes over there.
There's some down.
There's some down over the hill, but they see the junkyard first.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yep.
Okay, Yeah, you that's- can
The only way you can get to them is off of 215 and. Oh,
you
no,
can do
I lost.
223rd, but it's like a,
You have to wind around.
they're like have larger lots and
You
they're
can get to them off of 223rd?
And, Old KC, can't you go
You
that way?
can, you can go.
Yeah.
Columbia Road's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, Columbia Road was one I was thinking.
And I apologize, I forgot to put a motion there for you.
is there an application number you can reference?
I do not have one,
Just reference the site.
yeah, and I don't even,
The site.
Surrounding neighbors have commented positive or negative about the fence or?
if they were, it would have been during the site plan. I don't recall if we had any, I don't think we had anyone there.
I don't think we had anyone.
Most of the people are happy to see something besides what is between Bedrock and them.
Okay.
And I mean, it is a requirement to have that fence separating.
Yeah, right. We're requiring it to have they actually distance-wise from them to the residents, they were only gonna be required on the west because of the ranch house. All the others sit way too far and the junkyard property runs through there. So, but they wanted to go ahead and do this, so. And here's, had they had it 6 to 8 foot type tall fence in the site plan, we wouldn't be coming back to you, so.
I move to approve the fence variance as presented by staff for agenda item number 5.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll start on the left.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Chairman, if I may, it's 75 degrees in here. Can we turn the air down?
I mean, I have it down. It's down to 69. It's gonna take a while. I can go knock it down, but it's in another room, so,
No, it's, in this room, this one's that one.
yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't sure, Amy, I know I kind of mentioned, I didn't know if somebody else could do it.
Oh,
So-
I can run in and do it.
Feels great over here. I don't know where the vent is, but I think.
I have a,
You ready?
yep.
Okay, so, Shockey Consulting is here. They are, helping us update and revise our comp plan. We have Grant and Molly here. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thanks, Amy, and thanks Planning Commission for having us tonight. So what we want to go over is kind of a status update and get some of your feedback regarding the comprehensive plan update. So we're not taking any action, we're just kind of really feeling the room and trying to see where we can make improvements. I trust that you've gotten all of the draft material that we've presented so far. So here's our team, kind of what it looks like now. We do have other members of the Shockey staff that all assist with our comprehensive plans. So again, my name's Grant Lang. I'm the project manager and urban planner. I also have Molly Saunders here, and she does fiscal impact and project support. We also have Mike Scanlon for project support and management consultant. And then, of course, Sheila Shockey, the founder and CEO. So here's a quick overview of everything that we want to discuss tonight. Just kind of reiterating what the purpose is of a comprehensive plan and a process update so far. We also want to do an engagement overview, everything that we've learned so far from the surveys that have been put out. So that'll be a quick one. Draft framework outline. So those are kind of all the chapters that you've received. A fiscal impact of land uses, and then we'll take a look at the future land use map and growth area. So what is a comprehensive plan? We are looking 20 years in the future. We are guiding the development and redevelopment of Spring Hill with this document. And it really just kind of provides a roadmap for decision makers. Where we're at in this process right now is kind of, we're looking at the goals, vision, and actions. And so through the process, we have 5 steps. We're right at kind of close to the end at number 4, codifying our findings, our goals and strategies, actions, and implementation steps. Once we're done with that, we will come back to you for a more formal presentation that would actually be a recommendation to the City Council. So just real quick, what comprehensive plans are not, now that we kind of know what they are. It's not an instrument for immediate change or an attempt to replace market forces or any changes to existing zoning or ordinances. Things like changing your ordinances would have to be separate plans or studies that would be completed once this has been finalized. So real quick on our engagement, we had a lot of good conversation with community members. You could have seen us at any of our pop-up events. So we were at the Fishing Derby, the Luau Fall Festival, which was also interactive, and Hometown Holiday. We also had a kind of focus group open house. There were signs, stickers, newsletters, you name it, we tried to do it to get as much involvement as we could. So as far as our survey participation, we had a really great response. So that was 630 total responses. And through our 3 surveys, we had, the first one was on vision, we had issue identification, and then strategies and prioritization. And so 70% of the respondents who took all 3 surveys, so that's a really good number. Demographically, it did kind of follow what you would expect for Spring Hill, so we met all of our markers. And then that map shows For the individuals who did want to provide their address, it would be those locations. And so the purpose of that is just to show where we're getting participation. So the dots on the map are located in subdivisions for homes inside and outside of Spring Hill. So we feel like we really got a good turnout and responses from the community. Some of the primary themes throughout the process that people were choosing to live in Spring Hill for the small town feel, the schools, the location, and the safety that it offered. And then some of the challenges that people brought up were lack of entertainment and restaurants, attracting and retaining businesses, and infrastructure, the roads and sidewalks. One of the key takeaways that we found throughout the process was the affordability or attainability of housing and the cost of living. So while some people viewed being a bedroom community a positive, others looked at it as a negative. So what that really shows is that there is a disconnect between some of the residents that have been attracted or are coming into new subdivisions and they want to see all of the modern amenities, and then other residents who have been here for a while are feeling a little bit left out. So before I continue, any questions regarding our surveys or engagement? All right.
I have a question. What
Yeah.
proportion felt left out in the city, and what proportion felt like what you just responded to, wanted new amenities, or how did you phrase that?
Yeah. So
just-
there was just a disconnect in residents and what their expectations of the city were. It's because you have to balance old with new, and it's all a community. And so some members felt like, hey, all of the new subdivisions are getting sidewalks. What about, the older parts that might need some upgrades along the way as well?
So is it like 50% or?
Yeah, that wasn't a metric that we could really track as far as where those were coming from, because we did have addresses, but we maintained everyone's privacy. So we didn't really dive into exactly who was saying what. So we couldn't really tell from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't know that it was the older residents or the longtime residents that were making those comments?
So that came from our public engagement when we would talk to people at the pop-up events. So from the survey, we couldn't tell that, but as far as just our interaction with people, either at open houses or the pop-ups, that was certainly a concern.
But again, you don't know where they lived.
No, we tried to maintain as much privacy as we could.
So it doesn't, even if you don't know where they live, do you know, like, percentage wise, how many are you getting? Mostly people are feeling like they're not included or they feel left out, or are you getting just like a small percentage that's saying that they don't feel included and they feel left out?
Yeah, so the survey did offer places for people to provide comments, and I would say it was about a 50-50 split of residents who identified as being a longtime resident versus someone who was new. And so from that, that's kind of how we gathered that there was that disconnect.
Do we get to see the results from the survey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have every line item here,
Yeah.
but certainly we have the engagement platform online, which is Spring Hill Comp Plan. You could either go to that, or I'm more than willing to send everything to you. So
Does online have the answers?
yes, it does.
Thank you.
I didn't know that.
Anything else? So this is going to be our draft framework overview. This is what I'm talking about. They're pretty lengthy documents, but very beneficial to get some feedback on. So I think you should have had copies of them already. So if you have any comments, we can certainly go over them line by line. I'll go over the goals and kind of what each one is trying to achieve. So our first chapter is community identity. Then we go into community health and safety, livable built environment, harmony with nature, was resilient economy, and land use and community design. So our first chapter, the goal for community identity is to establish Spring Hill as a place where residents feel a deep sense of belonging, where diversity is acknowledged and celebrated, and where shared values continue to shape our identity. This chapter is fundamental in shaping the collective character of community, weaving together its past, present, and future aspirations through various aspects like cultural amenities and strategic branding. The identity includes active involvement and investment from residents and enhancing vibrancy and collective commitment to growth, ultimately guiding the community towards a more inclusive future while honoring its unique spirit. So I'd entertain any comments or questions regarding this first chapter.
So I know we received the draft framework, which is that seems to be like a shortened version, and then we got the different chapters. And I apologize, I'm new. Can I ask some questions about the actual chapter that we received?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. When, on chapter 1, on the insight, I know it says that our population stands at 8,345 people. Our annual growth rate is at 1.44%. Since 2020, the 5-year projection estimates that the population will reach 8,696, by 2028. The annual growth rate, though, will be at 0.83% from 2023 to 2028. I guess, are my notes. We're only anticipating a growth of 351 people in a 5-year period.
Yeah, and that comes from the census.
I agree with you. That was something I marked too as a question, because that doesn't seem real at all with the amount of properties that we have approved over the last 2 years
Okay.
that I've been on the council. I mean, we've, 6,000 homes at least? I mean, they're already, you don't think it's 6,000?
Oh, no.
Oh, it's been a ton. I don't know.
We have the exact.
Well, even 2,000. I mean, they're, breaking ground, spring, right across the street from me. This Garrett Ranch is definitely more than 350.
When I know that some of these developments are coming in phases, they're not all gonna be,
Sure.
as soon as they put them in, they're not all gonna be right up at front, but I do know we've approved quite a few, I was not here, so I apologize, but I know that our community has approved quite a few developments, but 351 seems low for a 5-period increase of population.
From, just jump in and answer that. How do you all feel as the drafters of just not talking about the census projected growth and just say the 2020 census was this many people
The rest of it.
and the city expects to be growing just in general? And I know that's kind of vague and I appreciate what you guys are trying to do here, but yeah, would that work from you all from a drafting perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to do whatever satisfies the city.
I honestly think we'll be doubling our population by then, but
Does that work for you all as commissioners? I mean, just kind of, we don't want to be purposely vague in here, so it's good that they're coming to you with details.
Same token, I
so-
think we need to understand what an outsider might be thinking this population's gonna be. I agree with Kat and Debbie, I don't think that this is a decent projection. I'm not part of the census department, but I think it's also, and if we change it in the document, that's fine, but I also appreciate having the background knowledge of where this is coming from.
Yeah, I'd just like to know why the annual growth rate has reduced down to 0.83% from 1.44.
Well, let me give a little context here also. We are having the slowest year in building permits that we've had forever.
Okay.
So, and we can sit here and talk about projections and everything, but truth of the matter is, if one builder was not taking permits out, we'd probably have only about 8 new single families. So, we're most likely, we had projected for budgetary reasons and all, only 80. Looks like we'll make that. And really, the following year, you know, we'd only projected still about the 65 to 80 range.
You're talking
Because-
homes total?
Yes,
Building permits.
building, no, yeah, new single families,
Okay, new single family.
new
Okay,
single families.
Okay. I thought you meant
Because
building.
it looks, let's take Dayton Creek real quick. There are a lot of homes under construction, but most of them were permitted last year.
Okay,
Okay. We have several subdivision plats that have gone through the process. Dayton Creek's one of them. Out here, what's that called over by the pool? The other one. Maple Woods Valley. I mean, my point is they all did everything, but then have stopped all their infrastructure. They're not gonna put it in.
but there's multiple
So-
reasons for those.
Well, but it's the same
No,
thing.
but I'm just saying, there's multiple reasons for that, so making a crystal ball guess is difficult on
That's what
the
I'm getting
negative
at.
or the positive either way.
Exactly. So I think that I think the best solution for this is just not make a crystal ball projection on that. Maybe say, and, you know, well, developers aren't gonna come in here just because of what the comp plan says on population and all. They're gonna do their due diligence and everything. So I think maybe if that is a holdup, it'd just be best to just remove that portion of it, knowing that, you know, you could have from 0.2 to 2% growth. You know, so, but that's food for thought.
So you're suggesting just strike that line of 5-year projection?
Yeah, that's something we can do. It probably makes sense based on y'all's comments, so.
I was honestly just curious because
Yeah.
I didn't know where it came from.
No, it's a valid
What are your
question, so.
guys' thoughts? Would you
That's why
rather
we're
keep it
here.
in there or change it to the
Well, no, because
percentage?
let's say if you're moving to the community and you go to look at something like this, they think that it's a small town, well, smaller, but then, well, it's not gonna grow but this much, and then they move here and then they're upset because it's going crazy. If it does go that way, so, I wouldn't.
Well, I mean, I think the other issue to me is that we keep hearing from the school district that just, we're the fastest growing school district in the world.
Especially in
And if people read this and
Yeah.
that says we're really not growing, it
for me-
creates a sense of who's telling the truth.
Yeah.
Is it the
Well, yeah,
city
we'll go
or
ahead
is
and,
it the
yeah,
schools?
we can strike this. I mean, the comp plan is a big document, so, this might be one of the better chances I've ever had to use of don't, lose the forest for the trees. So we'll go ahead and strike this and kind of look for some of these bigger themes that Shocky's put together for us as well, if that works for you all.
Well, I know from being in the school district, we're not losing students, they're definitely growing, so. And when I think of the numbers just at the high school, from one year to the next year, it's an eighth of that number, just at the high school building.
Right.
So I agree, taking out the numbers might be the best balancing of scales.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a, document that, is projected for 20 years. And so to just, say, 5 years is probably easier to strike. And
But I
and the,
appreciate the knowledge and the background
Yeah.
knowledge.
in the school district, we do have their enrollment, numbers and they are growing. And I think what it's key to keep in mind is that, their boundaries are just slightly different. And so they do pull from
Absolutely.
areas outside of Spring Hill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, and they can accept from other districts. as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Right,
It just does seem like in 5 years from now, if we only have 350 extra people, that the town is still small, but I don't see that, so. Yeah, I think people would anticipate it's gonna grow a lot more, but.
but I think to Rodolfo's point, somebody that doesn't stop and think about what you just explained, and they're gonna compare the two.
Right. Yeah, no, we can certainly take care of that and just get rid of that line. Because the good thing is you're still projected to grow, you know, it's not a decline and it's just a matter of how much.
Right.
Yeah,
And it wasn't 50.
right, yeah. So what other thoughts do we have about community identity framework or the actual chapters?
On the first chapter, the next page, I have some thoughts about the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Sure,
I don't know if I really like the equity term in there.
equity, okay.
I didn't know this was a DEI.
Where are you looking, Commissioner? Snyder?
It's on chapter 1, page 3.
Page 3, okay,
I
sorry.
was on two.
Transit work site.
I don't like the term equity in there, but I realize everybody uses that. I just don't feel it's appropriate for Spring Hill.
Okay, yeah, that's easy one to strike.
Why not?
Just because it means different things to different people.
What does it mean here?
Well, that's
What's
a
your
good question.
intention
What does it mean? That's,
Yeah, so I mean, when we first drafted that document, it would be to treat everyone fairly and to have.
well, just put equality.
Yeah, so if you want to do equality instead of equities, absolutely.
Or equally?
Equally, okay.
Used to be equality and then somehow it changed to equity, which I don't understand.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can get into there are differences between equity and equality, but if you guys, yeah, we could just get rid of it. That's fine. That's what we're. But
Brett. Spencer.
I didn't have anything else for chapter 1. I don't know if anybody else did, but.
The only other comment that I had was the Pride campaign. You're talking about
Community pride.
community pride, not,
Right,
Being
community,
Yeah.
exactly. And if we need to rephrase that, we certainly can.
no, I just want to
Okay,
clarify. I took it that that's what you
Yeah.
meant. I just want to make sure that,
right. Yeah, no, I mean, communities see words differently, and so we just want to make sure that this represents Spring Hill as much as possible. And so changing, you know, if we need to change words here or there, absolutely fine. But our intention was pride was not,
well, I mean, we've done
Community
pride
pride.
stuff before, but I think it's under a different context a little bit.
yeah, I understand.
I also, maybe I'm just missing it, but I didn't realize we were such an art district. Where's all the art at?
So we've seen murals, and then there's some in front of the police station, and so there's that, it rotates, right? What was the,
Yeah, I've seen some. I just didn't realize that we were kind of known for that.
Well, and I think when it mentions festivals and the choirs, that probably the Spring Hill Choral group that does a singing thing once every 2 months, and
Okay,
I think it went along with, I took it that that's what he meant, was
Okay.
the murals that were painted down at the pool and downtown, and
I think of like, I don't know, Sedona
we've got,
as an art place, or Weston. I don't necessarily think of Spring Hill. That's what I'm asking. Where's it
Weston.
at? I would love to see that.
So,
yeah, I mean, certainly it's not on every corner, but there's certainly some art aspects to Spring Hill, yeah.
Okay,
there's one,
So-
there's a soldier downtown, and there's
Yeah.
one at the ball field.
that's true.
and-
Okay.
well, but just some context also on this is the staffing is working with the rec department right now on putting in some actual sculptures and things
wonderful.
of that nature.
Okay.
Amy may be able to fill you in more, but on street corners and things like that.
There's 6 more that are.
So, just so you know.
Okay.
Because what got me was it says it's nurtured by its small but vibrant art scene. So that's cool. Maybe we'll get to be known for that more.
Maybe we'll get our art council back.
It's a goal to work towards also. If it's in there, it's a goal to work towards
Okay.
that also, you know, I mean.
Yeah.
Or we can change the verbiage a little that we're heading in the direction or something of that if you
Emerging.
want. Right, yeah, emerging, there you go.
Well,
You,
we have MAPPA, for the,
I have no idea what
for
that
the
is.
children's theatrical group. So I went to all of those. I agree with you. I don't think, when I think Weston, but I could see where they found those.
Okay.
So do we like the term emerging, or do you just leave that? Emerging? Okay, perfect.
Don't you think?
Yeah, sounds great to me.
Chapter 2.
So chapter 2 is community health and safety.
Chalk.
The overall goal here is to fortify Spring Hill as a safe and healthy community where residents can thrive, where people feel secure, supported, and able to access resources and that promote their well-being with accessible healthcare, clean environment, strong social connections, and good infrastructure.
I had a comment on the chapter 2 also, and it's on the housing, it's like page 2 possibly, for the chapter that I printed out, but talking about the availability of multifamily housing units, that it's at 16%, which is more than the median of 8.7 for cities across the United States. So I guess I just kind of marked it as something to think in mind when we keep saying we need more. Maybe we don't.
I'll agree with Debbie. I have that listed under chapter 2, but I have it highlighted. That way when we talked in chapter 3, that doesn't seem consistent with some of the messaging that's in chapter 3. So I have that exact thing highlighted.
Did we get together for coffee or something? I'm forgetting. I said, did we get together for coffee and I'm forgetting? I'm teasing.
I need caffeine, so.
Okay, so we can clean up those inconsistencies. And you felt that maybe we don't need to encourage more multifamily, or what was that comment?
Well, yeah, I guess.
And that's the question to answer. I apologize to interrupt, but that's the discussion you need to have real quickly, or I'm not meaning quickly, but do have that discussion now.
Can I ask that we do it on chapter 3, but just
Yes.
remember that section?
That's fine.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just that we have that,
Because I think
have that discussion,
it's
please.
stated more in chapter 3, and I think that just
That's
that,
perfect.
that section.
And then everything can be cleaned up after the decision on chapter 3.
But
But
I-
I also maybe revisit that after we talk about fiscal impact too, because that might influence some
Sure.
thinking.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand or hear that.
So Molly has a portion on fiscal impact, and
Okay.
some of that will be discussed as far as multifamily and what the impact would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What do you like about chapter 2?
Well, may I also say too, I didn't quite mark it, but it stuck out in my head and I see it here, but we really, our voting rate is 73%? Doesn't seem like we usually have that many at the polls. But does anybody else feel that? I mean, it seems like the number for like city council were like 300 people or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, much lower.
I mean, that doesn't seem like 73%.
Okay.
I wonder where that number came from.
I can double check the source, but it should be from the AARP, which would give us that information, but I can certainly double check it and confirm that that's what it is.
And maybe it's like certain elections, like presidential elections?
Yeah, and presidential elections typically do have a higher turnout. I don't know
Okay.
if it specifies, but yeah, I'll definitely clean that up. If you think that it does say 70 and you think that that's too high, is that something that you would want to either strike or rephrase?
It's under engagement and opportunity, still in chapter 2. It says voting rate is 73%, surpassing the national average of 63%.
Are those?
Highlighting all involved and engaged.
Like, 73, is that what was actually recorded, or is that an average?
Yeah, it would be an average. And so that would be the AARP, but I'll double check.
I mean, that'd be great if it was 73%, I just don't believe it.
Okay, sure.
Are you listening to me? Chapter 2?
Oh, no. That's why I'm not finding it. I put it over there. Why not?
Because wouldn't there be like a number from the voting, the polls,
Yeah, the precincts will,
precise number?
yeah, they do report, and so that's where the data comes from.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is that where you pulled the 73%?
correct.
And yeah, as far as the comp plan being a land use document that kind of guides us going forward, this is one of those things, don't get too caught up on these numbers. This isn't the final copy coming to you all, but the important stuff is talking about the overall themes of community health here, and then as we get into some of these later chapters, getting into the actual land use is the real meat and potatoes for you all. Not that chapter 2 isn't important. I'm certainly not saying that, but
I think all of
yeah,
it's
try to keep a
I mean, I'm
try to
just
keep
gonna
a
fight and.
eye
say
on the
it is
prize. Yeah.
I was just.
We're putting these
kinda
numbers
going
in there, they ought to be
on
accurate.
Debbie's question, cause, you know, we're not sitting there all day long at the polls, so we don't know that it
Sure,
could be or it couldn't be, you know.
but you're pulling from the AARP, is that what you said, AARP?
Right, yeah, and so they have a whole list of things that they track for cities.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
so Association for like retired persons,
Uh,
is that what you're saying?
yeah.
ARP, yeah, it's like Medicare and
Okay.
secondary and.
Yeah, because they have a livability index, and so they kind of do a report on each city, just so when people are looking to move, where do they want to move? And so showing the voting rate just shows how active and
Yeah.
engaged and involved people are.
Sure.
Yeah.
You'll get mail on it, I promise. I do,
I already did.
so.
Sort of in the same vein, the latter part on that same paragraph. It's hard for me to believe that the high school graduation rate is 97.5%. And that,
It's higher or lower?
and that the average, it's lower. And that the national average is 89.7. I mean, everything that I read, and having been in higher education for 42 years, that seems extremely high.
Yeah, so
Usually a
that number came
graduation
from,
rate that you'll see researchers comment on is somewhere around 60 to 62% nationally. So that, I don't know where
Yeah,
you
that
got your
The school
89.7.
district's website, it's somewhere on there.
yeah, we got that data from the school district, but I'm happy to double check it.
Well, they count percentages differently than,
It does say 87% when I Google it, not for Spring Hill, but national average. But I can say I have one son who I can't believe graduated. He had like 60%, 40%, and all of a sudden he passed. I mean, for real.
yeah.
It's like just, you know, what is it? No Child Left Behind. And there really is no child left behind. It's get him through school and graduate him. He's a great kid. He's super smart. He's not good at school.
Yeah.
I think that the thing to consider on that too, it may be that the high school's giving you a percentage after X date. So if kids make it to, there's a magical date that they have to turn into state. End of September, 1st of October, I believe. And so if kids make it that far, that percentage rate could be coming from that, not just
Sure.
from the first day of enrollment. I don't know.
Okay.
Just saying that there could be a difference, just like there could be a difference in our other percentage numbers.
Okay, yeah, and we can look and see if the census has anything on that. They usually do, so we can see what they had as well.
I just
But it'd
Googled
likely
it.
be the same number that was acquired from the school district.
It says 95.7, but when figured with virtual school, the district graduation rate is 84.6.
84.6.
With virtual.
Because the virtual is at 70%. No, it's Spring Hill.
No, I think what he meant is virtual is, it's not just state.
No, I thought virtual is, you have virtual just for Spring Hill.
No, there are Spring Hill kids in the virtual program,
Yes.
but virtual can go across state lines.
That does say they
Under
can't,
the
it doesn't
K-12
count
from
the
all
fact that
over.
virtual school is serving students across the state. Okay.
I don't think we should include the virtual school in that percentage number.
Okay,
Because
we're
that
90.
virtual school is multiple state lines.
okay.
So 95.7, so you're close. I guess it would just depend on what year it was.
Yep. It's low after COVID.
I think, did everybody graduate in 2020?
They had to.
Yeah.
Yep. It was after that that we went down.
All right, any more comments, community health and safety?
I have a just a question maybe. when it says promote, this is on community health and safety, right? Promote environmental sustainability. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, so environmental sustainability is kind of, an old adage of like, leave it better than you found it. And so promoting that in schools and in education kind of teaches other generations of here's what we should do. And so recently, development codes have included like best management practices for stormwater runoff and conservation zones and things like that.
Okay.
Let's go to the next one.
Real quick, while we're still on this chapter, again, this is kind of the trees through the forest thing. I know it says that our police station with the 15 officers is, I thought our goal was to be at 17 officers right now. It talks about, the crime records and the track records and everything. Do we know what, I can't remember what Chief Henson had said, what our officers per residence is ideal. Do we wanna have that
Yeah, that's-
comprehensive plan of 15?
No, not in a comp plan, yeah. That's, yeah.
It seems very specific, and
Yeah,
as
that's-
we grow, that doesn't seem like a.
Yeah, no, valid question, but that's, yeah, for a comp plan, we're really talking like executive level stuff, especially when it comes down to that public safety. So it's more of a, how does our land use and all of that affect public safety? This is sort of a, from you all's lens rather than the city council budgetary.
Rather than a specific number of how many officers,
Yeah, if you guys wanna take that out too, that's fine. Yeah, totally.
I don't know if that'll be an ever-changing number as we increase.
Well,
This is-
it's a changing number
Remember, this is a
because
live document too.
the last time that the chief said something to the city council, she mentioned they had 18 officers.
Yeah,
It is correct, and that's what I'm getting at. This is a live document. We'll be looking at this every year, and, yeah, that's just a whole big oversight that, we do have our own police department, actually.
Yeah.
Cause there's a lot of cities that use the sheriff's department, so.
That's what I'm just curious if maybe a ratio would make more sense than the amount of officers.
I think neither.
Then it
like,
changes.
Yeah, because, so the comprehensive plan isn't, it's not an ordinance or a code, it's not binding on anybody. It's just sort of your guidance document going forward, so, yeah, if you have a issue with that, just take out the number 15 and say we have one police station, because that is something as we talk about, areas of growth and what we would wanna do with the current city stock. I mean, the municipal land ownership and facilities is an important part of a comp plan, so,
Comp plan,
yeah, so that belongs in there, and that's a good point that we have one police station and
And
one
they visit
civic
the
center,
comp plan.
right, yeah,
Just,
But we also have
she might not know.
sheriffs as well, cause there's a lot of townships that
right.
when they respond, it's
Right, yeah,
Spring Hill.
and we do have, but also, and Ms. Knable, one of the things is we look at the CIP every year.
Right.
And that would be a good place to direct that to and, let the city council know your views and all on that through the comp plan. So, and I think it'll be coming up here shortly because we're starting budget now, so.
You guys add in the sheriff's office?
No,
This is just for the city, so we don't wanna
Well, it's
really
specifically
consider,
police, but,
yeah,
the
no, I-
sheriff also responds as well. Both
No,
of them.
it's just, because this is just a planning document for the city, we don't wanna look at too much what, especially in a law enforcement section, we don't wanna look what the county sheriff is doing, so. Unless they're trying to gobble up land.
So without any further questions, I will go to chapter 3, which is the livable built environment. Our goal here is to create quality, accessible neighborhoods with a range of housing types and price ranges for all Spring Hill residents, while providing quality utilities and infrastructure to benefit public and environmental health. Any thoughts?
So this is I mean, it's crazy. I would have thought that we already would have things. This is the chapter there that we're gonna have to look and see what your ratios you want and things like that. Now, I know some of you have some thoughts and comments and all on it, and we need to hear those from all of you. And this is a chapter that will probably come back and back. And these chapters here, even the next one to tie into parks and things like that, it'll tie into your future land use.
So at what point in this can we talk about the sequence of this connectivity? Because it seems like our connectivity comes way after the fact, things are established and built. Is there a portion of this where we can say that connectivity has to happen on day one, whether it's curb and guttered or not? You either put down an 8-foot wide asphalt trail or you put down a city standard sidewalk on day one, Mr. Developer?
You can. I mean,
Well, I want to do that.
and we do that in some situations and circumstances.
I just think we need to do it in every situation because this is where it's gotten us today.
And
And
It's
that,
just a fragmented.
and along with that though is, you know, and I know that we keep pushing for the governing body to, do more of that. You know, because you could have a section that's just put in and it will never get tied to.
Right.
So I understand, and you know, I'm all for sidewalks and things like that, going through trails and all that. So this would be an area that we could say, okay, in our procedures, you know, we want, in some better verbiage than I'm putting it, we want the connectivity in the first phase. Okay, we want the connectivity for this subdivision in the first phase. Now, our only flack will be on some of the developers is, okay, I'll connect to the maple tree,
Yeah.
you know. And, I mean, you know, I'm realistically. And
Well, no,
so
I get it.
that will put pressure or maybe it will guide the governing body to spend more funding on a trail system.
And I've been on the other side when, as an applicant, of those discussions with certain,
Yes, you have.
individuals, and it gets us nowhere. It's just like, you go
And it-
first. No, you build your first. No, I'll
Yep.
build mine first. But if we had actual language said, everyone's just gonna build at the very beginning.
And you know what, on some of the situations, like, oh, well, in 5 years, this and
Right.
this and this will happen, and we'll have this nice trail.
Yeah.
Well, like, it's been more than 5 years.
Yeah, you up Merlin right now in Olathe, and they got sidewalks going along just ag land.
But you understand some of the things that I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's right.
I just say
either-
it hasn't worked for us, though.
No, it doesn't work
Right.
for us, you know, and so we just have to, and I think that also unimproved roads, you still have to
Sure.
do that. The big excuse has been, well, it's unimproved, we're gonna tear it all out. Well, in 2 years, that's what I always hear. And so far, 5, 6 years, I can tell you one right now. So, but yes, we can definitely,
But
say
is this the
those are-
appropriate tool right here to put it in this language here? Or what is that
Yeah.
So
sequence
really,
occur?
we can make recommendations in this document as far as creating connectivity. But as far as the timing of those infrastructure improvements, those would be better as a ordinance amendment.
Right.
And so as far as the planning document goes, it may not be the best place, but certainly something that could be looked at or recommended.
So, yeah, so the comp plan, the level of teeth that the comp plan has is tricky because you can't go after a developer and say you violated the comp plan. Because that's not violating the city code or law. But during the planning process, you're right, putting it in this comp plan lets our planning staff say, hey, this is in our comp plan, and if you guys aren't following it, I don't know if the planning commission's gonna like it. You are right that this is the right chapter, so if you guys look at what page, it starts at the bottom of page 3, mobility, transportation, all through 4, all through 5, getting into 6, and then it turns into infrastructure utilities. That's the section, yes, so if you guys want to, if there's specific prose language you guys want to see in there, and you don't have to write this, these guys are professionals, so no one expects you to put together as good a language as they're doing, but if there's thoughts or priorities you guys want to hear, we can talk about it here. You can put that in an email to staff, and staff can get that over
Right.
to these guys. But yeah, this is the right chapter for it. This is the right place to discuss. We want to see development come in with their plan to tie into the community from a
Right.
walkability, bikeability, which are in here, right? It's mobility, transportation. Is we don't just talk about cars in this plan. This draft talks about. I was just on it, page
So
4.
expanding on
walking and
that,
biking.
yeah, regionally, does this address the regional connectivity too? Cause I know we were talking about in the steering committee, you know, Mark and all that. And how do we connect from Kansas City down to Hillsdale? And at what point does that regional connectivity come into play? And is it this chapter as well?
Yeah.
But doesn't the more verbiage, and I don't wanna use the word teeth, because I understand what you're saying. But doesn't the verbiage then allow us to say, or allow Pat and Amy to go back and say, here's the ordinance that needs to be changed to match with what we've finally revised our comp plan to have, or to give us the encouragement or the backbone
Yeah.
to have the ability to go back and create those maps.
Or
Yeah.
just
It
on
also
the development planning.
right. So when someone brings you a PDP, I'm not even trying to say the words. They bring you a PDP on a planned district, and you look at it and say, "Hey, there's no sidewalks in here. This doesn't connect to the main streets." You can point back to the comp plan and say, "You want us to rezone this to RP3, and you don't have the connectivity that our comp plan talks about." Well, that's one of our golden factors on rezonings. That's going to weigh against that thing. So then the developers and the applicants are going to take that into consideration. So yes, this is the right chapter for it. What do you guys want to see as far as connectivity mentioned in your comp plan? Is it we want tied into the main streets, we want sidewalks, we want bike lanes, we want a plan for you to get back to the arterial 169? I mean, how connected do we want our comp plan to read?
I think, I must have addressed it in a different chapter, cause I remember writing down specifically, I think they need to connect to the school. And again, I go back to, you know, my community that I've lived in, that my kids grew up in, we were too far away to get free busing, but there was no safe way for my kids to walk to school. We had to walk over railroad tracks, had to walk through ditches, I mean, we had to drive them or pay for school bus.
And it goes both ways, where if we have that in there, then the school district also has to meet their requirements on trails and things like that as well for the connectivity. So I think that the plan that we're talking about and all, and then we'll have the trail plan, yes, it will encompass, if you so choose, all the different schools. Makes sense, a library, you know, things of that nature. So I think the big picture is though, that they have to put you want the infrastructure in the first phase. That's the big overall picture of it. And there are no, and I mean, and I hate saying that, there's really no variances. We don't care if the road's improved or not. Okay? Because what's happened before, like I said, well, the road's not improved, but 5 years it will be, and that never comes to fruition.
And it may not be 5 more years.
Exactly. So,
I want to make sure that sidewalk or this trail is along the public right of way too, not just internal to the subdivision,
Right.
but along the public right of way.
okay, or if we can, public right of way or, city controlled easements. Like we could form, a easement that the trail sits into. Now, the only reason I'm saying this, Josh, the main reason is if we place everything in the right of way,
Well, along the right, like usually the right of way runs right up to the sidewalk. So like my sidewalk in my
behind it.
house, yeah, it's right. So like you have your public right of way. This is city, and the sidewalk abuts it on the backside. It's not within it; it's along the right of way. So I'm just saying, have a sidewalk along the public right of way, because like for instance, Wolf Creek, we got sidewalks all over the place.
Right.
But once you get to the public right of way, you couldn't walk to Wolf Creek from the pool without going through the neighborhood.
Well, we had to backtrack to do the crosswalk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's having that linkage along the public right of way. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
And whether that's a trail or sidewalk.
I understand, I thought you were saying that you want everything in public right of way.
No.
But I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
just along a road.
Connecting links through the public right of way.
Right.
That's fine, I understand that.
And so what I'm hearing, and we do have in the local actions on chapter 2, it says require developers to construct all trail and sidewalk improvements prior to vertical construction or first certificate of occupancy. So would that be better suited in the next chapter? The reason why it was in chapter 2 is because it's connectivity and trails and health would be considered that. But yeah, a lot of these chapters can be flexible with where that language
Sounds like we
lies.
should take out or first occupancy.
Well, I think that also, now Josh and everyone, so if we have a trail system shown that runs, let's say, down through the Greenway area and all, you want that entire trail system built though.
Yeah.
So it's not just, what we do now is, first phase, they get it built, or we don't give them a final occupancy. What we're saying now though, and that's only first phase, what I believe that what you're trying to say is the entire trail system for this development in the open green space needs to be built. Is that what you're saying?
Within a development, yeah, but I feel like we're talking two different things now with sidewalks and then acquiring easement for a regional trail.
Yeah.
Because we'll have a trail going through development, but then we're still gonna need an easement of sorts for a regional system that goes, let's say, along Woodland.
Okay, but you said that you want the trails built
Yeah,
in the first phase.
correct.
Okay, so but you're not just talking about the trails in the first phase. You want the entire
Oh, I got you.
planned trail built, correct or not?
Or sidewalks.
So if there's
Or
3
sidewalks,
phases in a development.
There's
you're
gonna be
saying
multiple
All in
phases.
first phase, all of it
Yes.
built, is what you're
What
saying.
Debbie said, yes, all of it built.
All of it, not
It-
just through the
sidewalks
first
and
phase.
trails.
Makes sense.
If there's six
Well, not in.
phases,
We're talking about trail system.
are you wanting, cause I think I'm
I
hearing
know.
2 things too. If
He's-
it's 6 phases.
We're gonna support that.
You want all the sidewalks built before they start phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
No, we can't
Or are
do
you-
Can't, the
that.
sidewalk comes with the homes.
Right,
Or
so
are you saying you want the trails
Trails.
before?
the trails.
The trails before. But again, feel like we're still talking two separate
We are,
things.
yeah. Number one, trails, let's deal with that.
Mhm.
And you want all those constructed through like the Greenway Plan District and all that.
Well, I mean, that's miles of trail.
Sometimes it's not. But you're right, it is miles of trail. Let's just say it's miles of trail. But you want that built with the first phase.
If it goes through a development, yes.
Okay, now, and then the second part of it is connectivity with sidewalks through the right of way to this trail system. Which we can control that through the plat and then every house with the building permit. It's not feasible to put that in before they build the houses. Because they get all broke up, they get tore up, it's a mess. But we can make sure that it's on the plan and every one of them gets built. That connects to a trail that's already built.
Yeah.
Am I correct
As
or?
long as, you know,
With
kids can get
everyone?
from point A to point B type of thing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
I,
I struggle because we have all of our segregated low neighborhoods.
Right.
In Spring Hill, and they all have their sidewalks
Yeah.
inside, but you can't walk from one to the other.
right, and we talked about that.
We just build the sidewalk along the right of way,
And then
you know, not in it, but along it,
into the, right.
into the next neighborhood. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, okay. So connecting,
Yeah.
making sure that we can connect through sidewalk trail right of ways.
Mhm.
And then the first part is every bit of the trail that can be built at that time needs to be built.
Right.
Okay, within a development. Because honestly, there'll be some that we're gonna have to work with, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's replattings and all that stuff. and
Right.
I get it.
So,
But
okay. I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
that we were on. Thank you. Did anyone else have a comment on that that I need to? Well, no, I'm serious. I mean,
so many sidewalks and trails.
I don't, but I have another comment on chapter 3. One thing, I mean, it does talk about just, some of the major roads in Spring Hill, about the mobility and transportation connectivity. I think Ridgeview is a pretty major road. That's just not included. And then the 169 highway, I don't think of it connecting really to Lewisburg. It's more of like Paola.
That's what I
But-
meant to, is Paola.
Yeah, the 69 connects to Lewisburg.
Well, remember what we're, 68
68.
So 68, 169.
to 68.
Sure. If I'm gonna go to Lewisburg, though, I'm gonna take 199th over to 69
Yeah.
and go straight down.
If I'm going to Lewisburg, I'd take 68.
I do too, but I mean,
But-
Somerset
but-
Winery is still Paola.
But here's the overall picture to look at this, and we've talked about this. We were talking about Ridgeview,
Yeah.
and I've asked several times, what is going to be for these plans, our east-west connecting road? What, we already know that Woodland right now is designated as our north-south connecting road. And then we go down to, Renner or something in that area, maybe a little farther. Yes, we realize that Ridgeview needs repairs and it's gonna be used a lot. From connecting highways or edge of city to edge of city is what we really need to ask. You know, we talked about that, and at one time, everyone felt like that 68 should be the connecting link. And that's what I want to make sure that, you know, we're not saying 199th's a connecting link, 207 a connecting link, 223rd.
You said 68 highway?
Yeah.
That's what was said.
Okay, it's not
Yeah.
listed. but-
68 is where we decided that we wanted to push the truck traffic.
For
So they know
oh,
it's taken
south,
through town.
that far south, okay.
And have them use that as the east-west, west-east.
I recall that.
So
We did
yes,
not want it on 199, we did not want it on 220.
Okay, well, this is talking about the connections between Spring Hills downtown, commercial, whatever. So it's more of, I felt like this was more of like what's connecting our city. So the
is.
169
It is.
comes
It-
down,
It is.
and all of the city is really 169 Webster, 199th, 223, all of that area. But I think we're even as far as, like I said, Ridgeview is, everybody drives on Ridgeview, the high school's on Ridgeview. And then maybe even up to Merlin, but I
I
just
mean, in
think
that,
of the central area of Spring Hill.
but you're looking at your area.
Yeah,
So you go over on Lone Elm, everybody drives on Lone Elm
okay.
on that side. Well, what I'm getting at is what we need direction on is what do you see as your major thoroughfares that will be built to connect the city end to end, side to side, width and length?
So you have your two north-south and you have your two east-west.
Yes, and we're not, and let's separate this, trucks and
Transportation,
good transportation, you know.
vehicular, or
Now, you've indicated to me several times that you want trucks to go 268 and utilize that as cross, not, 223rd and things like that,
not 183rd.
No, but so what are the two north-south?
definitely.
You're saying 169 Webster? Those are the two north-south?
No.
No, that's what we're asking. Well, actually,
have here,
Woodland
yes.
Woodland is designed as a major arterial.
Sure. I'm saying
169,
it's here.
yeah, 169, and I have it down as low as I go. 169 is another major. Okay, so we have those two that will eventually be worked on and constructed and things like that. We will have to claim another one at later times out towards 69. But now we need to look at, or do you see another one, north-south, I'm sorry. And then we also have to look at what are we gonna do for traffic east-west?
So we gotta, I guess in my opinion, we also have to remember that this is a yearly review,
Oh, yes,
and so
but,
this is what it looks like today, or
Yes.
maybe in the next 4 to 6 months.
okay, so,
But the next time we review it, we could add Ridgeview.
all right, but let me stop you real quick, Cindy. Anyone that's driven Woodland would never guess that it's a major arterial.
Right.
Now, what does that mean to staff? If you look, all those buildings back there are pushed way back and additional right-of-way was received on that. So that's what I'm saying, yeah, we can review it and we can massage it all the way up and down, but it really needs some sort of concrete answer, because if a plat comes in tomorrow and another plat, and we don't get that right away and all, you know, you see what I'm saying? And I do agree that it will continue to evolve. It's a live document.
Not for truck traffic, but I think Ridgeview will continue. When you look at the evolution of Ridgeview going up north through Olathe, I think
No, I
that'll
agree.
continue on south. It'll keep getting built off on, and
It dies at,
yeah, but
207.
is there, I mean, 50 years from now, could it ever
no.
keep going? It's,
It would be, at this point right now, it's ballpark 5 to 6 million to cross that.
okay,
Cause if you think about it, Josh,
yeah,
by the time it gets down there, it's collecting a lot of water,
yeah,
and it's a very large floodplain.
yeah, okay.
So my anticipation is that it will not.
Because I mean, I see Woodland as, I mean, I just, what you just said, it's a pothole filled
Oh, it's-
road, and I see it as an opportunity though, that's where the trail system can go, where you can come
I
up
do
with
too.
a
And I did.
new
that-
road section, and then you have the trail system that's running there on the east side.
And
There's
it
not
gives you
much
connectivity.
residential. I don't feel like there's not much residential on Woodland, and
That's
therefore
correct.
there's not much traffic. But Ridgeview has a lot of traffic because of the schools and all of the potential developments that have been approved.
Yeah,
to go
now,
in.
okay, so maybe I'm not really clarifying. Ridgeview will be built, let's say, to a Super 2, meaning it'll have 3 lanes where you can turn, all right? You have to have something in the future that's going to carry 4 lanes of traffic. Like a
Okay.
Metcalf or something.
And you're thinking Woodland
Well, it's designated woodland right now,
to be 4 lanes?
yes.
The other problem with Ridgeview, in my opinion, is it goes south.
Well, that's what.
That's
Josh
what I was
was
saying,
talking
I didn't know,
about.
yeah.
I mean, that's my
Yeah,
big
that's,
problem
but-
with
I just didn't know if
Ridgeview.
there
and
was
don't get me wrong,
height
it
and
will,
size.
Debbie, it will have to be improved and it will have to handle a lot of traffic and all. But we're talking a lot of traffic, is what we're talking about. Like
I think
a,
there's gonna be a lot of traffic with all the residents that are about to be built there. In my
Yes,
opinion,
but-
there's gonna be a ton,
but
I
they'll,
think there's-
okay, but they'll drive to 207th
yeah.
and that's it. Where if they can get on Woodland and go clear back all directions, and that's the
Okay.
major arterial. No, I mean, I'm just saying that's what it was planned on right now.
It's just not listed on here. All I was bringing up was it's talked about some of the major highways or some of the major
I
roads.
agree.
Woodland's not on there, Ridgeview's not on there, 60's
No.
not on there.
Right.
All the roads that you were talking
Yes.
about. So I just was pointing out that
And we'll have to.
I felt like Ridgeview's a pretty major
Yes.
road as well.
And it is,
68 being outside of our area, do we want to list it in the comp plan as the truck route intended or perceived or?
well, that's what we're talking about. If you say that, yeah, and,
So we need to add it.
well, there's a couple of things. First, yes, okay, let's do the truck first. It's our understanding, staff, that planning commission said 68.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
We should
that's
have-
done.
Yeah.
That's done. Now, we have to get major traffic east-west,
Woodland.
east-west.
160, oh,
East-west is gonna be
23rd,
your
199.
23rd and 199.
If that's what I'm asking,
Right.
and that's what we gear towards.
but not truck route.
I say
not.
that?
No, I just make sure.
Now, listen,
Okay,
you're
'cause
not
199
gonna
is the high
stop
school.
all the trucks.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, the new, count that just came out, there's only like 2 more heavy trucks running on there than it was 8 years ago, I think.
On where?
On 199th, I'm sorry.
Probably because
So
it's
the
been
count.
closed down.
Well, whatever the situation is, that's what it came up.
Today at 1:30 when I
But-
came back into town, there were 7
Okay,
trucks at 207 and Webster.
so let me explain something though, and that's what I'm trying to get through. We can't stop local truck.
No, but we're also.
Dump trucks and
publicizing it.
What?
I think that we're not publicizing it, and I understand that that's the industrial area. But I think that there has to be some type of communication to Edgerton to please communicate to your drivers that we want.
They don't, and number one, they won't. Number one,
understand that, but I'm
I
just saying, I think-
understand. I seriously doubt that, I mean, you know how I am, straight open, Edgerton don't care.
No,
mean,
but I just think that
and, well, we've been
somebody from the
talking.
city should care and be doing that.
Okay, you know,
So,
Cindy, how
so
that,
you're really saying, Pat,
But-
23rd or 190, we need to decide.
or both. Hey, Cindy, I agree with you on that,
Both.
that we will contact them, somebody. I just think, well, 199th's closed to trucks.
That's what I understand.
Yeah, so's 223rd to the west. Yeah.
I understand, but I'm just saying, there, and I agree with you, that's what, I'm not arguing that with you, I just think that part of what we have to do is communicate. It's communicate. It's location. Industrial Park is there at 207. I have just never counted 7 big trucks at that intersection at one time.
Okay.
It's
Something's
getting busier.
changed.
Yeah,
last
the
couple months.
industrial park is twice as busy.
I mean, just
they're
the
putting
last couple
out-
months, cause I take that all the
I
time,
mean,
and
look
there's a
at,
stoplight there
look
now.
at Cardinal Glass. They're adding on, and we got told today they could add on another 200,000 square feet. Everything's getting busier. And that's why I'm asking these questions about truck routes and then major routes for transportation.
Okay.
Josh, you had,
No, I mean, I'm fine with 68 and 169 and 69. I
with
was,
trucks, yeah, that,
Yeah, yeah,
as far as I'm, that's okay.
I was gonna ask another question after this.
Okay, so you were saying though, 199th and 223rd,
Yeah,
is that what you wanna show in the comp plan?
I mean, I think it makes
I think
sense.
that makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Do we add 69? Or, yeah, 69.
For east-west though.
We're just talking,
We're talking vehicular traffic, not truck.
yeah, just the
That's true.
So
vehicles.
220
No trucks.
It
190.
makes sense to me, 223rd and 199.
Yeah.
but I don't know.
No trucks,
No
No
truck,
trucks.
truck.
so,
just vehicular. You're talking, major arterial, what are you talking
a
there?
major
Yeah,
artery,
major
yeah.
Major.
And it makes sense, that's where the room is.
I did have another question while we're talking about the 199th, but I'm, my pages aren't numbered, so I apologize, but I know this is in the chapter we're on. Under Transportation Safety Solutions, it says that a roundabout is planned for 199th and Ridgeview. Didn't we already build that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that might,
If it gets real busy, we'll stack them.
Right now. Are we rebuilding it? Okay, so it's where, it's one of your bullet points, it says roundabouts are low maintenance, blah, blah, blah. The very last sentence says roundabout is planned at 199th and Ridgeview. It's
Is
already
there
built.
one
Okay,
planned at a
we'll scratch
different, is there one planned somewhere else that was meant to be?
I'll double check with our transportation engineer, if that was just a typo of what street that should be on, but, it might have just been a typo. So
Well, there was one
thought
talking
that-
about south.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, they talked about 207th in Ridgeview, so I wasn't sure if maybe it was meant to say something else.
Also,
I mean, do you guys want the comp plan? So this is the thing. What a comp plan is good at is we like roundabouts, we don't like roundabouts. Rather than saying our roundabouts are going to go here, here, and there. So
That's fair.
let's talk about. Do you guys want there to be an emphasis on roundabouts? Do you want them to be on your arterial collectors? Do you want no roundabouts? Do you want Pat's idea of double roundabouts? Yeah.
well, the roundabouts, I mean, in my opinion, work pretty well, they're safe. The one by Ridgeview and 199th is very safe for all the high school kids.
Sure.
It really moves traffic well, everybody's happy that lives over there by me, so. I like roundabouts.
I know there was a lot of pushback in the beginning.
Yeah.
It has
There's
worked,
always
And-
pushback.
it has been really,
But it's worked well.
Yeah.
I think, and it's worked
well.
very
Part-
well for
the
the
sort of.
kids.
sort of
Very well.
roundabout.
Yeah, there's
there-
no accidents.
I think there's pros and cons of roundabouts. I think that we shouldn't put ourselves into a corner by saying we love roundabouts or we don't love roundabouts. I think that
Well-
should come as an as needed.
It is important to staff though, that if you do some emphasis on roundabouts, because it takes a lot more right of way. And telling a developer, and actually, most developers anymore want roundabouts. We do have one commercial business that they said, we won't go in if it's a roundabout. So we had to put a signalization. Our only signal light, so you can figure that out pretty quick. So if you want to emphasize it, but you are correct, it also comes about in the traffic study. Janelle will look at that, or whoever's doing the study, and then Janelle will look and say, a roundabout is not feasible here. Roundabout may not be feasible on our major arterials, is what I'm getting at.
So can we just say as
So-
warranted by the traffic impact study?
Yeah, or with an emphasis on roundabouts, if that's what you want. So, they are a lot, I'm not gonna say they're cheaper to build, but they're darn sure cheaper in the long run because of maintenance and all.
I do like the one at the high school. I don't like the one on 163rd and Merlin, if we can just say that. Unless there's some training, because I can never figure out what is my right of way on 163rd. I
Yeah,
just
we
kinda drive it
probably
until it
should-
runs into me.
I've got a comment
Good
I'll
at the
keep
high
to
school.
myself, but, sure.
Senator Drive.
So my last question for chapter 3, and I don't know if it's
I know.
for this chapter, but it deals with identity, and I've brought this up before, but overlay districts. And can we identify? Can we identify where those happen, or if they happen, or how does that happen? If we can identify an overlay district, say on Webster, we don't want any more pre-engineered metal buildings on Webster type of thing.
Where are you at?
I'm asking if it's warranted for doing an overlay district.
Okay.
Where we can up the ante on the aesthetics of Webster, if we wanna do a certain facade or setback or furnishing certain street lights that have baskets on them and street signs, where does this identify overlay districts?
Right, so
What-
how I would answer it is we would say in here that there are overlay districts in certain areas, and then we will have a separate appendix that maps that area. And along with the mapping of the area, it will give the criteria for that overlay district.
Right.
And
So-
those are the districts that we'll need to know. We did talk about South Webster, and I haven't forgot it. And a matter of fact, with the possibility of some realignment, we're working on that. And that would be, we probably should go ahead and get started on some overlay districts. We'll have to make that a session that
Yeah.
just overlay.
I
We'll
know
get some
that's something that
information out so you
interests
guys can
me,
get-
cause I've always
Oh,
struggled
sure.
with the identity of Spring Hill, and I think that can
think-
easily become an identity is Webster if we do it right. It
And I-
won't happen overnight, but.
Right, and I think Cindy, you'd brought up 169 in some of those areas also. Aesthetically with some overlay. So, not have what we have now.
Is this where we should talk about railroad? Because we had talked about the potential of downtown railroads changing. Does that matter
There's a,
at this time?
no, I honestly don't believe so at this
Okay.
time,
I don't-
because,
I
here's
didn't either,
why.
but I just wanted to ask.
Well, here's why. Yes, but I believe there's a study getting ready to come on.
Okay.
That will be provided into us. So, and I imagine there'll be some changes coming
I didn't
next council meeting, isn't it?
think, but I wanted to ask before we missed it. All right,
I have a question on chapter 3 under trends and foresight for housing and our housing choice. Where it talks about the missing middle housing, the second paragraph, it talks about integrating missing middle housing options in the communities particularly close to existing infrastructure, opens a broader spectrum of housing choices. That was earlier when we talked in the chapter 2, when we were talking about the availability of multifamily housing units in Spring Hill. It stands at 16.6%, surpassing the median of 8.7% across the US. I feel like the message is kind of conflicting between chapter 2 and chapter 3 when they're talking about that there's a big need for this. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? I don't.
So missing middle doesn't have to necessarily mean multifamily. In some circumstances, it could just be smaller lot sizes.
Okay.
And so the if you start with the smaller lot size, then you can build a smaller home for it, and so that kind of fills the gap. Traditionally, what we've built is large lot, single-family homes and large multifamily, so this is the gap in between those. So while missing middle does include some aspects of multifamily, it doesn't have to be inclusive
I think in that
inclusive of
first
that.
paragraph, though, the way it's explained, it
Sure.
sounds like it is, I mean, it says with, which encompasses diverse options like duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, and small apartment buildings. It makes it sound like it's just multifamily, so
Sure.
that's why I guess.
Yeah, we
It
can,
sounds like
So-
there's mixed messaging between those two,
right.
so I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are.
And one of the things for you guys under, so missing middle is the concept of you can't have a city that's just a bunch of single family houses with yards and then 4-story apartment buildings. Like there has to be something else, that middle in between, because one, that doesn't work from a housing stock, and two, it makes your city not flow, and that gets into issues with massing, and we don't want a bunch of jagged things. So, yeah, I mean, but if
think
you want to
the
just add in the
wording
concept
is-
of smaller lots, RP1 stuff, we can. I mean, is that what you're getting
Wording
at,
just
or?
Sounds like it's mixed messaging. Does that make
Okay.
any sense, what I'm explaining? I'm not saying that either one of them is wrong, it doesn't sound
Right.
cohesive.
So we're giving the examples as far as like the duplexes. Would that be better to include more examples of like a smaller lot size that would fit into that,
I was
like a
thinking
characteristic?
starting with that way it
Okay.
doesn't just start off as sounding like it's just
Yeah.
multi.
Yeah, we can
family.
reword that to be like more inclusive of single family as well.
I think that's,
I just wanted to sound
I
like
think
it's,
you're right.
yeah.
that chapter 2, it sounds like we've got a lot more than everybody else, and then over here, it makes it sound like there's a need for it, and it's just going into the multifamily immediately, so I think we started out and then.
Okay, yeah, we can change the intensities of those. Yeah.
Perfect, when, while we're on that, so if you are talking about smaller lots and all, then this is the time that, you know, staff and we can work in the comp plan as well. And what's your criteria, of small lots and what, cause we have brought preliminary plats to this body and 40 and 45's got turned down. And so this is a point that we're, you know, we need to know. And structures, you know, that it gives a good mix.
I
But-
think the ones that we turned down weren't, the lots were smaller, but the houses weren't smaller.
No, they weren't.
See, that's what I was gonna say. It depends on what you're gonna put on it. I mean,
Well,
I
but-
don't mind small lots if it's a, if
And
it's
where
a
you're gonna
small
put it.
town
What
home.
you're putting it next to.
I mean, if it's a
Lots, you mean, small.
That's what I'm asking.
Brentwood house on a 45.
I don't know what you say.
But that's what we-
People don't wanna mow their
No,
yards, and so they might still want a big house, they just don't want the yard.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? So,
Well,
I honestly was just out to, Richmond, Virginia this last week.
What's that?
And there's a ton of different kinds of housing there, but my brother lives in,
No, it's-
very, very old part of,
I see.
but I saw a lot of big homes with very, very small lots.
correct.
And it's weird to think that, but I guess that's, and even his house. And they're like 3 foot away from their neighbor, but their house was built.
It is friendly, you can shake the hand.
There's no yard. And they don't have to, but then they have a house out in
You
the
could hear that
country.
conversation.
Right.
That's where they get the yard.
Right.
But
And if you have
So you
a
do know what
smaller
I'm saying.
yard, then you might have more of a community gathering space. And if you've been out to like New Longview, they have a new urbanism concept out there where they have very small, they're very close to the front right of way,
Right.
and then they have a large gathering spaces.
I mean, I don't prefer it, but apparently
And
there
I
are some
could
people
see
that do.
40 or 42 foot lots, even with the bigger homes on it, if it's a maintenance-free development for these people that are not wanting that. I
But-
mean, they still want a single-family home.
Right.
So I mean, I know what you're after, but I don't know if I can give you a footage that I would be comfortable
Well-
with, because it depends on what's coming in with it.
I understand, and the only thing I'm saying is we will now be in competition, you know, cause we're in competition with Lathan and Overland Park right now. But, and you know, you guys can drive through them, big house, small lots. Not maintenance provided, you know, and that's why I'm asking, because we have a lot of developers call and they'll say, you know, I think I just told you, you know, we told one just not very long ago, they had quite a few 40-foot lots. And we said, the planning commission has told us at this point, no. So this is the time that I wanted to discuss this on you know, what you guys kind of envision, or what you do envision, not kind of, what you
Personally, I
envision.
don't like the 40 and 25-foot lot.
Yeah,
That's,
that's the discussion.
that's my opinion, but if there's a reason behind,
Well,
I might be able to say, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I think a lot of times that also, I mean, the section after housing choice gets into attainable housing. So there is you know, your comprehensive plan really works within itself and cross-references, and that's why, you know, Commissioner Knable, it's a good point about, like, are we being inconsistent with where we're talking? One of the consistencies to talk about is housing choice and attainable housing, and smaller lots allows you to create a different type of housing stock and lets somebody build a 2-bedroom house when a 2-bedroom house on a 60-foot lot doesn't make a lot. No developer's going to bring us that. But as a city, do we want to have a space for those to come forward, or are you guys saying
That's what
no,
I'm
we
saying.
don't want that to come
But there's
forward?
also different housing stock that we're not talking about that's not come to Springfield yet either. Other than incredibly old.
But they're working on it. You know, I mean,
No, where?
Like what?
there's some plats that are out there that are working towards,
I'm
What-
talking about a different style of building.
what are you talking about?
It's been a very big deal in the town before, but we don't have any modular homes.
No.
I mean, that could fit a different housing stock,
Okay.
a different housing price range.
Yeah, but modulars, I mean, if someone comes in right now and they can put in modulars. So no matter what we do with the comp plan, I mean, they still have to meet those code requirements. So let's say someone come in with a planned district and they wanted 50-foot lots, and their plan was shown to us as being modulars. As far as actually stating out in the code that, you know, we are looking towards modulars and all, we just haven't been presented that, Cindy.
And I'm just saying.
And I understand what
We
you're
haven't
saying.
looked at that, and that could be a different setback, that could be a whole nother set of.
And
If
my,
you're gonna tie us to, if you're wanting us to say 40 or 45,
I'm not,
do modulars count,
I get it,
do modulars count as a single family? And I think they do.
they are.
So if you're gonna put single family in the comp plan as a 40 or 45 or 50, whatever you're gonna choose, we've got to watch that, because we've not ever had a different housing stock come in like that.
Okay,
And that
so.
could change front, side setback.
Right, so that's not really what I was asking on this 40 and 45. I understand, planned district, they can come in with 30s if they wanna match some sort of modular development or something. What I was asking is, are you willing to look at this? Because before, everything we brought 40-foot and 45 was just turned down just because we don't want the small lots.
I think the small lot should
So-
be where the middle goes. You have the smaller lot, which you would build a 2-bedroom, smaller house, which makes it more affordable than the 4 and 5 bedroom houses. So you keep those smaller lots where,
So I'm hearing that you'll entertain them.
yes.
Okay,
as long as it's,
that's-
you know,
because before, it was not entertainable.
I've read some really cool stuff about the small homes and the container homes and different communities that are
Yes.
doing different things that are in these chapters that you guys sent us. You know, I read some of this,
Exactly.
future stuff about it, so, I'm open to seeing, but I don't know
Yeah, I
how
just
that
don't
fits
see-
into our community necessarily,
putting
but.
the big 5-bedroom house on the 40-foot lot.
Exactly.
I don't like that, but if you go to the smaller house where you have more affordable in the very nice neighborhood.
And remember, 44s or 40s and 45s and all that will definitely be a planned district. And at that, you look at the elevations.
I would entertain it now. I think originally I didn't, but after seeing again, like, what they're doing on the East Coast, it's, you know what? More taxes too. And if somebody wants to build a, 5-bedroom and it's, one community and you've all these nice homes that have smaller yards, but we're still getting, tax
I
dollars.
wanna live in a nice neighborhood, it's.
That was going to be my point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
That like there's, and this is jumping ahead, there's a cost consideration, a fiscal consideration that the cost of infrastructure is spread across more people, and also from a revenue standpoint, I'll show you some examples later. You know, we look at some of these huge, beautiful homes on large lots and think, wow, there must be really great revenue generators. That it is, but not in comparison to what it could be. And so I'll show you a little bit more of that. So I guess in the conversation about smaller lots, you may not want them everywhere, right? I mean, I don't think anybody's saying, let's just do all small lots. But a case for them is to kind of balance out some of the tax and revenue considerations and cost of infrastructure. So that's the case for them.
We have a
Well,
lot
and
of
to go
patients
along
that are
with your
older.
2-bedroom idea, I have less of a problem with them if it's a transition area.
And so that's usually like how missing middle typically works is it's kind of I don't know if we have a graphic of it, but it's kind of like a gradient, you know, you don't have the highs and lows, you sort of like build from the small, maybe you have some duplex, and maybe you get into bigger homes, and then, you know, it can be something that's,
Kind of phase it in, you're not gonna have the tall house and then the short one and then the tall.
no.
They might be as tall with vaulted ceilings or something, but.
Right, and you know, like this is later, their comp plan isn't the place where you set your,
I'm just
you know,
saying.
lot lines and things like that, but that's something that you can do later in your zoning ordinance to like make sure that, okay, do we like large houses on small lots or only in some areas? I mean, that's something that can be figured out, but I think,
Seniors that are downsizing, parents, their kids are moving on, they don't want that big house.
Right.
But they
Where-
wanna live in a nice neighborhood.
right, where do they go?
Exactly, you don't. You don't.
Right.
Because there's no two-bedroom.
Yeah, so it like provides more like over the lifespan type of housing, you know, because the young couple might want a small house to start out with. There's nowhere for them to go. And then their parents who want to get rid of the big house also don't have anywhere to go.
Exactly, that's where I was going with it, I think it's a good idea.
All right, so I think we move on to chapter 4 now, which is harmony with nature. And our goal here is to preserve natural resources and protect the environment to enhance resiliency and meet the needs of future generations.
Kat had something to say.
I just had a couple more notes on chapter 3, but do you want me to just email them?
This is the time to
We've been
provide
on
your
for a
feedback.
minute.
This is the time, but also for the record, if you guys have notes after, you can email them into staff too. This isn't your only chance, but go ahead and hit them.
Okay, let me go over here. So we're talking about the infrastructure and utilities, some of the national electric safety codes. Should we include the year of the edition that we're requiring? I know right now we currently are using the 2005 edition for that. Is that something that we can update sooner than the completion of this comp plan? Cause that's kind of concerning to me. I don't know if we can just put in here like the most updated edition, or is that something that we can't put in our comp plan?
Yeah, we don't need to put it in the comp plan at all, but the code, especially the electric code, hasn't changed a whole lot. And we are working on changing to the 21 codes. And but what is funny to us, and it's very expensive to do that. But
What does that mean?
what do you mean?
Why is it very expensive to move to a?
Because all your books and your subscriptions and then all that is
If we're
tied
still using
into it.
2005, I would think that we
Six.
would put.
But,
No,
but,
the
well,
electric
electric's 2005, that's correct.
Everything else, like the building.
But
codes
here's
are
what I'm getting at, is you go out there and like portholes and all that are already being built to at least the 2018. Because all those subs come from the north. And they don't change when they cross the line. So I mean, we do not require a porthole inspection, meaning window area, and we get calls all the time for it. And we go ahead and accommodate it and all. But the only factor that we see a difference in is the insulation of the basement. Everything else is built to 18 code. If you really, worse than that, we actually have a code that says you do not need to use water and ice and water on roofs. And, you know, we have to change that for sure, but everyone does it because they're not changing. But yes, we will update those codes. We're planning on it in conjunction with this comp plan. I think I told you guys that well back, so I'm sorry, I know you weren't here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that I had looked recently and I saw like the building codes were 2006.
Yeah.
The electric
And people get
codes
really
2005, and
concerned
I
about it.
wanna make sure, I mean, our city can plan ahead, we know that we're gonna.
There's no huge changes in that.
Okay,
And I'll tell you, one of the biggest reasons there isn't, we're not in a seismic zone. Now, if we were in a seismic zone, earthquake,
okay,
everybody that's in seismic zones, there were some major changes on that.
okay.
You know, instead of using springs, they use hydraulics. It's really amazing what some of those buildings sit on, you know. So it's really hasn't changed a lot for us. So,
I appreciate you clarifying that, cause it's,
no, it's no problem. Yeah. And some discussions that will come later is, with those codes, is I know there's been expressed a lot that there has to be a safe room, you know, on a slab, something. So we'll discuss that as well.
okay. Yeah, I'm done, she'll keep it back.
So any thoughts on chapter 4?
The only thoughts I had, and I don't know how to implement it or if it's even possible to implement, but I know that there's a lot of HOA restrictions, like when we talk about, you know, green infrastructure solutions, the rain barrels, green roofs, things like that. I mean, like I know, like even having solar panels, I think there's some subdivisions that are not okay with that. And so I don't know if there's a work around it. I'm not a fan of solar. I don't think they look pretty, but I think if I could save some money, we'd do it.
Sure.
But I know that there's a lot of pushback on that.
Sure.
Even though that's something that we want in the future. Does that make sense? So I don't know if we have to talk about how do we address that with HOAs or.
Yeah, and so that's in reference, and it kind of ties back into the codes and what is allowed and not allowed. If someone wanted to, that wasn't in an HOA, you know, if the code would prohibit them from using a certain environmentally friendly building code or product, but the code doesn't speak to that. So it's kind of making sure that those two things line up. Certainly whatever the HOA has in place is going to be kind of the law for them. But anything that were to come in the future, just making sure that building materials are available to the people who want to build sustainably.
Yeah, and staff will look into that issue of if there's anything we can do from a city perspective to try to get HOAs to maybe relax their rules on things like renewable sources, whether there's a geothermal pump or a solar panel or rain barrels or just putting in local plants than a rain garden type thing. We'll look into what we can do. There's a lot of county grant programs that the city could try to piggyback off of and meet up with. So I think putting that in here, does anyone have a problem with that being in your comp plan? Is that a good goal? Like, I guess what I'm saying, do we want to push for more of this or do we want to say, no, let's pull back some of it?
If it helps staff,
Yeah.
is for it.
Yeah, okay, we'll find ways to kind of push forward with it and see if maybe, we can make it so there's less of a patchwork with the HOAs blocking parts of this.
Green Board Green Board did a big push not too many years ago of doing those rain barrels and sold, sold the whole setup, so it might
Legally.
Yeah, but
encourage
it's
other
a
groups
state
to do
approved.
butterfly houses or
Yeah.
rain barrels or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, okay, cool, we'll do that.
Oh, I have a comment. One of these, I mean, a lot of this is encouraged, like carbon footprint, and that's fine. What I don't like is the one where it says implement the Kansas City Regional Climate Action Plan, because I don't know what's in the plan.
Correct.
I think maybe we could change that or take it out, or just say, consider the Kansas City Regional Climate Plan framework.
Okay, instead of implement, we could consider.
Yeah, I don't say, yeah, shouldn't want to implement something
Okay.
you don't know what's in it.
Right, or can we have a copy of that? Do you wanna send that out to us?
Yeah, absolutely.
With the Kansas City Regional,
I think
Yeah.
less restrictive is better, just
yeah,
take it out.
consider.
Yeah.
But I'd still like a copy.
What's that?
I'd still like a copy of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Mark has all of their stuff online, but I will definitely send you a
Yeah.
copy.
Thank you.
Similar to that, you have an item that says follow recommendations established within the Spring Hill 2020 Parks and Recs Master Plan.
Mhm.
I don't know if any of us have seen it.
No, we haven't.
And secondly, I do remember it though, when it was brought up to the city council. And quite frankly, I was not impressed with it because it really just referred you to something that was done 10 years or 20 years before.
Okay, so is that something that we would want to scratch, or do we need a little bit more education on it, or?
I think we scratch it, but
Yeah, and Amy, is that available on the city's website?
It is.
Okay, so yeah, I would encourage you all to go take a look at that, and candidly, if there's parts of that that you don't feel go far enough or go too far, I mean, those are things we can kind of tweak a little bit in the comp plan and say, hey, here's a focus we'd like to add in there. So that's one of those things I hate giving you homework as adults, but yeah, if you guys want to go check that out. And then I'll give staff homework and send us an email and we'll take a look at it.
so can we change the wording to consider instead of follow?
We can. We also, as you know, as Pat has said, this is not gonna be the final version that whatever we come out of here tonight with. So if you wanna kinda lighten that up for now, we can. If you all wanna look at that plan and come back next month and say, hey, you know, we looked at it, we like it, let's fine. You know, but it is the city's plan, so
Plan needs work.
Can you send
Yeah.
it to us? Cause that'd be a lot easier than me having to go try and find something.
It's the 2020 Parks and Rec master plan for Spring Hill, that's what we're looking at?
yeah.
The last I looked at it, with Rodolfo, it was not against a parks plan or a trails plan at all. I think it's definitely needed, but I don't think that,
How often do they update that plan? Cause it's 4 years old now, so will they be updating it soon?
Well, so the rec department did it the last time, and what we have put in a goal is to try and get all your ideas and all, and do it now.
yeah, I would,
Cause I don't like the plan,
yeah, see that, yeah.
you know.
So then
I
why
mean,
would we?
you
say
looked
follow
at it
instead?
when it was presented to council, there really wasn't a whole lot of changes. And my own personal opinion is, I don't think there's much thought given into it. And now with the criteria of what you guys,
Right.
trails and all, it'd be a great time to do it.
So maybe it needs,
We'll get it sent out to you and we'll get it done.
maybe
Okay,
it needs
thank
to
you.
say, consider updating the plan. Or-
No, we'll just update it, but you wanna say consideration of this plan, and then get the plan how you want it,
Okay,
is what I would do.
And then attach a new year to the
Exactly,
comp plan.
yes, yep. I'm not a very good artist, but
Josh is amazing.
if we have to, why don't, on the, going through the chapters, we can always push the chapters to the next meeting and just have a few. But we do not wanna push the impact of it. So, Chairman, can we go ahead with the economic impact side of it? Instead of
We
reviewing,
can come back.
pardon me?
Chapter 5?
Yes, but to go ahead and do that and not, that way she, can give you all of the background and all on it, and after we get through with that, then we won't have to go into the next chapter at that time if we don't have time, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Cause I'm not sure if she will attend another meeting and we'll lose interest in listening before too long. I mean, it's the truth, is the truth. 2 hours and then we lose interest.
Yeah.
I lose interest in 2 minutes, but no. Here we go, thank you.
Okay, it's about to get exciting. Now, if you thought it was hot, you'll start like getting a little warmer as you think about fiscal impact. So I'm Molly Saunders. I'm with Shockey Consulting, and I am kind of the firm expert on finance and thinking about budgeting and the future, the long-term future of a community. And so, you know, I start out just by saying that the comp plan is an amazing document. It's really where you can kind of envision your future and kind of dream a little bit. Like, you don't have to be bound by exactly reality today, but there are some things that you want to think about as you're doing a comp plan because it is setting up your future. And a lot of times we get caught up in the words in the document and the map without really like thinking about, this is my geekiness. I like math. There's a lot of math behind this. So, you know, at the city, the budget is considered the biggest policy document a city council does. And so it's really important. Something that sometimes runs under the radar is actually your land use plan has the biggest impact on your city's financial future than anything else. So the budget's really important for a year. Your land use plan really sets you up for the long term. And so the reason we like to include a fiscal impact discussion in a comp plan is because we want you to make decisions today that 20 years from now, people aren't saying, what were they thinking, right? Because as community members, as taxpayers, you want your money to go as far as it can. And so that's something that I like just to bring into the conversation. And your comp plan isn't your implementation plan. Again, it's kind of your dreaming big, setting your philosophy, putting your philosophy out there. We're a community that likes trails and things like that. You want that out there. So I want to talk to you a little bit about thinking about the financial health of your community as part of the comp plan. So when you think about the fiscal impact of things, obviously we first think about revenue. So these are the land uses that are going to generate property tax. Some generate more than others. What's going to generate sales tax. And then there are some other general revenues that come with growth. So we think about that, like as you think about each land use type, the ability to raise revenue or generate sales tax depends on the use. So we'll get into kind of the small lot discussion here in a second. And then the other thing is, as you consider land use and growth, you have to also think about the things like the capital costs, the roads, the buildings, if you have to expand any utilities, if you want to fill in your sidewalks, if you want to grow your sidewalks, etc. So those are expenditures that you have to consider. Growth is great, but they also come with a cost. And then there are other things, and I think there was a conversation earlier about police. There are operational costs too. As your city grows, at a certain point, you're going to need another police station. You're going to need another community center. You're going to need people to staff those things. So growth, the growth will trigger needs to spend money in some ways. So growth it's not all revenue. There are costs to consider too. So when we think about how revenue is generated in land use, and from a revenue standpoint, thinking about productivity, the ability to generate revenue really is related to the efficiency of layout and your land use type. So I'm starting with the commercial example because sometimes these things are surprising. We have two examples about the same acreage, and one is a fast food restaurant. You know how much business fast food restaurants do, so you think, wow, that's probably the revenue generator. It may have some sales tax that comes along with it, but from a property tax standpoint, and this is not using Spring Hill numbers, these are just kind of like industry averages. The property tax that you're going to generate on that same amount of property is far less with a single use that has a big parking lot than a mixed use that has parking on the street. So kind of thinking about commercial districts, what kind of development are you encouraging? And it's not to say either of these are right or wrong, it's making sure that you have the opportunity to balance things. If you had a main street that had all fast food restaurants, I think you're leaving potential revenue on the table. So that's just something to think about. From a residential standpoint, this is something, VPA means value per acre. And so when you look at this picture, the one on the top right, the big house with the swimming pool, that looks pretty amazing, right? You think that, and it is, from a revenue standpoint, from a city, the value per acre on this is about $75,000 because it's got one property. But when you look at the two others, you can see that there are several houses on the top left, and the value per acre is $27,000. So there's a lot of green space there and lower value houses. But the one on the bottom, you see these smaller houses, more dense development, and the value per acre is higher. So when you think about it from a revenue standpoint to the city, again, it's not like you don't necessarily want all small houses, small lot development, but it might be part of the mix. And so you also don't have all giant lots unless you want to, what I'll talk about later is you can pick any of these options. There's just a consequence, right? Because the cost to provide infrastructure is higher per acre, so your taxes either need to be higher or you have to do something a little different. Does that make sense?
I do, I think though, in considering it, you have 10 homes, so you have more people in the bottom one. So then you do have to have more staff, more police, more everything, so you do need more money than if you were to have one home. I mean, 74,000 is a lot of money for one family versus 10 families at 126. So that's
Right.
what you're saying, but at the same time, it's,
Again,
right.
there are all
Yeah.
trade-offs here. So you could also make the argument that like it's the big, and this is just something to think about. The big one could actually be a security issue. What if they don't have a fence and now they, like maybe the neighbors that are close are looking out for each other, like again, you can just think about like what the safety, lots of factors, but like if you're looking at public safety from when we grow 5,000 people, we automatically get 10 new officers. Then that's a big consideration, right? So there are trade-offs in all of these, and this is kind of looking just at the revenue perspective. We'll talk about the expense side in a second. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay, so then again, with land use, you think about what's the ability to generate other revenue? Will this use bring sales tax, user fees, and who pays them? So if we have commercial and we attract a lot of people from out of town, a lot of other people are paying our sales tax, not our residents. So those are just things to consider, and again, having a balance of residential and non-residential uses. And pretty soon we're going to look at a land use map that shows some things, and this can give you some context of, do we have the right balance? This is just an example of accommodating both having the ability to use land in a way that you can grow your population, like using the same amount of land and having higher density, you can generate more dwelling units for a higher population. So in this example, these are the acres. We have 132 acres, and you can see the density on the top is a lower density on the left, a higher density on the right, and the consequence of the higher density is you get slightly more revenue, but you can also have 200 more people. So again, if you're looking at population growth and expecting population growth, that you want to make sure that you can use your land in a way that you can have space for your population. So the other thing to consider is different land use types have different requirements for capital infrastructure. So if you have a major industrial area, that's going to have a lot more truck traffic, and you have to think about the cost to serve that with infrastructure is going to be higher than just a residential street. However, the industrial use probably generates more property tax than residential. Density, like having more houses in the same acre, decreases your capital cost per acre. Something that sometimes gets lost in the excitement of putting together a land use plan and map is really thinking about where your existing infrastructure ends and what it's going to cost to expand it. So it may, really, if you say, for example, you want large lot single family, but you have to extend roads, water, sewer to get there, and consider that against how much property tax is going to come in. Sometimes it's, a little upside down. So that's a consideration in thinking about land use of what's it going to cost to actually serve it. And like we were talking about, when you have population growth or area growth, then you might need to do major facility upgrades, and the cost to provide services goes up. Okay, so this is just, we don't have to talk about this, but if you have $1 million of infrastructure cost, when you think about the land use pattern, it makes a difference on how to recover those costs. So if we did land use planning based on just a fiscal model, though, then we'd have all commercial, not much residential, and then we wouldn't have a city anybody wants to live in. So when you think about your land use plan, the fiscal model is one aspect. Sometimes communities say, we really want to maintain a single family home. We're a bedroom community, that's what we want to be. That's fine. You can absolutely do that. So you want to think about what the community wants. You also have to think, well, that also comes with a cost. So we have to balance these things. And then the market analysis piece is really, what's the market doing? So if you are a place where certain types of businesses like to go, that's a great thing. But if you can't plan on, we think we're going to be really good at attracting these, but we've never have before, probably need to consider, what kinds of businesses or residents that are we really going to attract. So really, when you think about your land use plan, you kind of have to put all of these pieces together, because I know that just in your own life, you can think about something that you think, that would be really great, this would be perfect, but then I actually have to pay for it. Well, I think I'll dial back some of the things that I think I want. So really, this is just a matter of balancing. And then finally, this is where the long-term thinking, nothing that you're deciding today will impact people next week or next year. This is the sort of thing that over time will create potential gaps. So let's say that, you have low revenue generating land uses and not enough revenue. I mean, in the future, taxes will either need to go up if you want to maintain service levels, or you're going to have to decrease the level of service, right? And so this is where you have to think about the future. What are we setting up? If we look at this pattern of development, are we going to be in a position where we'll need to raise more revenue through taxes or decrease service? So, our recommendation is to shift the development patterns and think about your land use so your infrastructure investments make sense for the long term. I know lots of communities that think, what were people thinking 20 years ago? So we want you to have the opportunity to say, this is what we were thinking, and it made sense. So that is all I really have to say about the fiscal impact. Do y'all have any questions or things that you would like to think about? Okay. All right, are we gonna move on to the map? Yeah. Is this yours?
No, that's yours. So we started developing out a future land use map. And so why that's important is because we're going to guide our future development and redevelopment. We're going to ensure compatible land uses are next to one another, and we're going to proactively plan based on existing land constraints. This is not a zoning map, this is a land use map, so zoning would be codified, would have more rules and regulations in there. Land use is a little bit more simplified, where you can have intensities of use. They don't have to be as restrictive. This is the current land use. So the key thing that we're pointing out here is that the agricultural or vacant is 58%. And so those are going to be the areas in the dark green. So it just shows the tremendous opportunity that already exists within the existing boundaries of Spring Hill. And then throughout the process, we've kind of worked with our steering committee and staff to develop a future growth areas map in conjunction with the land use categories. When you're looking at the land use categories, so the green, which is open space, those are parcels that are tied to a floodplain. That doesn't mean that all of those areas are completely wiped out, but they will have some additional considerations to them when it comes to the floodplain. Industrial, we primarily followed parcels that were not currently utilized as residential. We showed those as industrial. And then we also have a separate map that I can get to, which shows Spring Hill in a little bit more detail. It shows the existing boundary with some of those islands that were identified as kind of throughout the process of people, it's all at the discretion of the property owner, but, for future annexations or what those could look like. So this is keeping it very tight to kind of what the existing city looks like. But I do want to go back to the growth. I know that it is very large. So this would represent, let me see here.
Can you go back one more too?
This one here?
Show the, because the farm, we're anticipating all the farmland or all the agricultural vacant is gone.
Right, so in the terms of planning, it would be agriculture is more of a placeholder or a zoning that existed before the city was incorporated.
Okay.
So those are kind of holdovers. You'll see more of the rural districts eventually come in for rezonings.
So we're not planning for any agricultural property in the future to be maintained. It's just
No, and
all the farmers are gonna sell.
part of that also is just candidly, people that are using their land in an agricultural way rarely come annex to the city to keep it agricultural. So people that are annexing in are typically annexing in with the idea of some sort of development onto it, even just a big residential lot. So to plan for it as residential, or coming in and saying agricultural is just not something that, and you guys do a lot of these too. I don't know that I've ever seen it in a comp plan.
Yeah, I mean, agricultural usually is just more of a placeholder. And like, if they're gonna annex in and get those city taxes opposed to being in the county, then there likely is a future plan for that. That's not speaking for every property owner, but usually that's how that process would happen. And in comp plans, we just don't show agricultural land because it's not the highest and best use.
What's the rationale for going all the way close to I-35
On the growth.
on the growth map?
Yeah, there were some ideas from staff as far as where the existing infrastructure or the infrastructure is planned to be, and kind of using Hillsdale Lake as a amenity.
So you try to encompass all of Hillsdale.
Yes, and part of this is also because Hillsdale Lake is in there, and again, you guys have input on where you want this future growth area to be. So if you want it shorter or bigger or whatever, but part of it is as staff, I don't think there was an idea of splitting the lake in half and saying we're only going to develop or future growth up into halfway through the lake. So it looks like it's this giant jut out in that southwest corner, but that's really just kind of encompassing the lake. So for what it's worth, and yeah.
And there will be some additional constraints on Hillsdale because it is a reservoir. So any of the runoff that would come from those sites, it is regulated. Right now, the regulation is mostly for livestock and things of that nature. But if you start to get agriculture or industrial runoff, it will be heavily regulated just because it is a source of drinking water.
What's the relationship or lack of relationship that you develop with other communities when you begin to infringe on their area? Like Wellsville, for example.
So it's something that you'd have to kind of contemplate with the county because those areas that are unincorporated are able to be annexed. Anything that has an existing municipal boundary, you likely wouldn't have that as an opportunity to move into that territory. So if you wanted to go down to Lewisburg, it's already incorporated, so you wouldn't be able to. But if it is like, Bucyrus and those property owners wanted to sign up to be annexed into the city, they certainly could. There's voluntary and involuntary annexations. And since it's unincorporated, it's a little bit easier.
So to answer your question on how I interpret it is was part of the discussion that we had on, one of the reasoning not to go up through the Gardner area, if you recall. I think this is the time that I've spoke to all of you about is the time now as where do you want to show this future land use growth? Is this how we want to see it or how you want to see it?
And this is what we talked about in that.
That's correct. But, yeah, we can't, so, but it is what we've been discussing. In the last meeting, we talked about it there, and I've spoke to several of you, by phone on it, and trying to.
Yeah, I'm in
make
favor of
sense.
it. I think it captures
So-
what we talked about. I've been an advocate of linking in Hillsdale, and I understand you can't only take half of it, Let's be ambitious and take as much as we can now, because we will probably get infringed on down the road.
I totally agree. I like taking in Hillsdale. I like the area where it's at. I like that it doesn't go all the way out to Gardner. I think
Go north.
good, yeah.
Yeah, I like going further south. I don't like when it goes so far west though, when we were talking about going over to that I-35 over to Gardner. I think that, I know you're talking about incorporating the lake in there, but I do know that like Gardner Road, it goes down and it goes down to 255th, goes around the Hillsdale Lake area. I don't know that Spring Hill really, personally, I don't know as far as the utilities and servicing that area all the way over that far. I don't know.
Yeah, and just food for thought. So existing Spring Hill is, roughly 9.4 square miles. This growth area would be 189 square miles. So Overland Park is 75 and Kansas City is 315. So, half of a Kansas City or double a Overland Park, however you want to look at it. So it's certainly good to be ambitious, and whatever the committee wants to do, we can certainly go that direction.
I mean, doesn't it just help staff just to show that we have a plan moving forward? If Gardner or Paola try to do something up in here, that we can raise our hand and try to say, hey, we've got a plan here too.
It does, but, we fought to the Supreme Court to remove those boundaries. So, it does to a certain degree. What concerns me is that we will focus on this big, large picture and not focus on some reality areas.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask.
And that's what I wanna make sure that this is fine. You know, obviously, we've talked about it several times. But we also need to make sure that we focus in the areas that are reasonable on doing, so.
If we adopt this, is there a way of putting bullet point priorities? I mean,
I think that how you do that, Cindy, is that you take the closer areas or the more focused areas and really work on them and put them like, okay, I want commercial here, I want this here, I want this here. And at the same time, think about your overlay districts.
I have a question for you real quick. Right now, are we mostly trying to tell you guys what we're comfortable with as far as the area, or are we also talking about, cause I'm seeing so much industrial that goes along these like railroad ways. And I don't know that when we're talking about the vision of Spring Hill, that we've really talked about that being our future vision, is having this much industrial that goes
So,
through these areas.
yes, can we break it down in two?
Yeah.
One is, let's say, or not, that this area is okay,
Okay.
alright?
I don't know if
And
it's okay.
really quick to Cindy's point on bullet point and priorities, I would caution you all against that. Because if you're a landowner out here and you see a bullet point as priority as Spring Hill come in my direction,
right,
it's gonna change your whole approach, and they're gonna have some leverage on us. And I'm not saying we're hiding the ball from the public, but we don't wanna confine ourselves and say we have to go out this direction, and then we try to get out that direction and something happens, or someone sees we're going that direction, another city tries to beat us there just to beat us there. So I get where you're coming from. This is a huge area, and the concept of Spring Hill growing to all of this in 10 years is, this is a growth area idea. It's not saying we're going to do it, but so that's something that just sort of the growth will flow naturally versus as who wants to come in. We don't really force people to annex into the city. We can't.
It's very tough.
Yeah. So.
So
but
let's
yeah.
go back to the area, and let's get that resolved if we can.
Yeah,
right off the top of my head, we're not maintaining what we have, let alone looking at something this far spread and knowing that that's not truly what our train of thought is.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I could be persuaded to do something different, but
Yeah.
that's my first initial reaction is we did talk about going west and we did talk about backing off, but if we can't maintain what we have, then why are we looking at, and I understand that you need to tell other cities what our train of thought is, but at the same token,
And it's not just other cities. We're telling our staff and the staff that's going to be here
Right.
in 8 years what we're thinking of a future growth area. So, yeah, the priorities of what we're doing now in our current infrastructure is different from where might we grow in the future, because no city in this area is stagnating their growth and saying, let's stop taking people who want to annex in so that we can keep up our roads. And if that's the direction that the governing body wants to take it in the future, that might be the way it goes. But for now, as part of the comprehensive plan, there needs to be a future growth area. So we want to talk about what that wants to look like, what you all want that to look like.
Well, I guess my sense is that, yeah, I think you wanna sort of look to the future, but to me, this is a 100-year plan. Because that's how long it's gonna take you if you get serious about it. And if this is going to, inform future employees, not even the employees that we have now, and it's gonna divert them from looking at the core needs in the area that we have now, are they gonna be thinking about what they're gonna do around the lake rather than worrying about what they're going to do on 223rd Street,
Those are the thoughts and the ideas that, we just need to address and hope that we can come to a consensus here fairly quickly on what size. And we'll be more than happy to redraw whatever we need to do to get that part how you foresee it, and then realize that what I'm gonna call the core or essential areas will work on those.
So, something that's really concerning to me is most of our schools in the Spring Hill School District right now are towards the north end, besides our Spring Hill Elementary and our Spring Hill Middle School. What we're looking at right now, most of this does go to the south and to the west and the east. If these areas come in, you know, trying to figure out, hey, what families have, you know, children that are gonna be in the school district, but then also the busing and just the amenities for the school district.
It may not matter,
The
cause
what?
Because the school district.
the school
is
district boundaries
defined.
are already drawn, and so they don't necessarily go to Spring Hill. Like, there's people who live out by Hillsdale Lake that are considered Spring Hill that go to Gardner or go to Paola, even though their address is Spring Hill. So just like we have Overland Park people that go to Spring Hill School District, it's like the school district, guidelines or boundaries are separate from the town.
So in addition to that, the way that like some of the people that go to some of our Spring Hill schools that live in Overland Park, for example, their taxes though are going to the Spring Hill School District. Is that accurate? So then these people will be going to the Spring Hill School District, that's where their taxes would be going?
Not
Not
necessarily, they might
because
still
They
go
may be in
Paola.
another school district.
Yeah, cause the
Well,
school
they
district,
do
Within the
district now.
city, but they're paying school taxes to some other district.
yeah,
Yeah.
they go
This,
to
this is
whatever
kind of
school
like a
district is.
50-year, like
Yeah, I don't see 10
Adolfo said, a
years.
50-year, it's okay. And believe me, I'm okay with it. And I think we should include Hillsdale Lake, because go for the gusto, because look how close Hillsdale Lake runs into Spring Hill already.
Right.
And so if you don't include it, I think that wouldn't be a smart idea.
Well, and
We
I,
already look at Hillsdale water runoff. I mean, we already look at any water.
No, but I mean,
runoff.
why cut it off on this, the future land use map? Just-
Yeah, I don't know how this hurts us by showing
doesn't
this.
hurt
I mean,
us.
I know, I hear Rodolfo saying, you know, the new staffer comes in is studying Hillsdale Lake, but I think that's quickly nipped in the bud by a coworker saying, hey, no, you need to be working over here.
Yeah,
I just think this is ambitious, and I think it's good to be ambitious. I don't see how this really hurts us.
Yeah.
I think if you look, I mean, is this common for other municipalities to have these large areas for future land uses?
yeah.
I mean, to this extent, no. A growth boundary is very standard.
Oh,
But,
ambitious.
you know, 2,000% your city,
Sure.
In a 20-year plan is a little less uncommon. Doesn't mean that people aren't doing it. I think that what we could consider is that this is a living document. And so if in 5 years, 2 years, you go, hey, we need more, we need less, you can always adjust.
You could do less now and adjust it the other way.
Right, you could do less now, and so what, one disadvantage of this would be, you know, cities of this size, instead of having like they do have a land use plan, but really to focus in, they have multiple area plans, that will guide future decisions, and so that's kind of adding to the pile of, okay, well, we have a land use plan and area plans to consider.
I like the ambitiousness of it. What I don't like is all the industrial. I think having that industrial along the, Bucyrus Railroad area, I mean, that seems like a lot.
And we can make
Marina,
modifications, yeah.
I mean, what kind of plants, and then, again, then we have to look at roads. It's not necessarily along a highway, it's along the railroad.
Sure.
So that's my concern, but I like the ambitiousness of it. I don't think it's gonna happen in 10 years, especially if you're quoting that we're only gonna grow by 351 people in 5 years.
Right,
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna be 1,000.
So, after we figure out this growth area part of it, and if this is okay, that's great, then I would suggest that we end it there and come back with what you're talking about, next phase. And it's not just the industrial, you know, we have to talk about the mixed use and all that. So,
Just start over there. Mary, are you okay with the way as it's presented?
Yeah,
Cat?
I think industrial's good on,
Are we
No,
taking,
no, no,
are we
no.
taking a vote?
Growth area.
oh,
Are we taking a vote?
no,
She's
no,
taking
no,
a
no.
straw
Okay.
poll.
go big or go home.
Cat?
Honestly, I'm a little nervous about what our relationships are and if this is gonna infringe with anybody on the Gardner side or down here on the Lewisburg side, if any of them are, I feel like we're with Overland Park and Olathe already in kind of competition with them on some of these things. I don't know.
It's not war though, it's not like Germany versus England.
I'm not saying it is. What
Yeah.
I'm saying is
The Supreme Court.
We're England for the record.
I feel like, you know, what. Why don't you come back to me? Let's go on to.
No, I'm totally okay with it. I think it is very ambitious though, right? But hey, include Hillsdale Lake. Why not include it? Right?
Go big or
So,
go
I mean,
home.
they're just putting industrial on there because what else are you gonna put there right now?
Don't talk
So it's like we
industrial,
can
just talk-
change that later.
Just talk big.
Yeah. If you don't need, the growth area is fine, the way it is.
I have a problem with it. Some of the issues that the city council and even the planning commission get criticized about is that we don't listen to anybody, okay? I think you would lose credibility, you're gonna lose credibility if you go to the public and say, hey, we're gonna grow 10,000%. Don't you think that's a great idea? They're gonna say, you're out of your mind. I mean, unless you have a lot of verbiage that explains exactly why this makes sense. And I don't think we do.
I think it's an opportunity to capture a rare amenity that's not common here in Kansas. You got Hillsdale Lake, you got Clinton Park State Lake, and then you got what's up there north of that. And we have an opportunity to say, state our claim here, and if our neighbors are not doing that, then, you know, so be it. This is our opportunity. I'm not gonna sit back and wait for others to jump on it. I understand the value of that sort of amenity and what it can bring, so I say I go for it. I mean, that's just where I stand on it.
I think it's, again, I think it's ambitious, but, just because we say this is what we want, doesn't mean that Lewisburg won't come in and say, well, we're gonna take this part first. But at least we're saying, hey, this is kind of our idea of where we'd like to be. It's not gonna happen in 5 years, but,
Right.
yeah, I think, again, go big or go home. I think I don't like all of the weird talk about that. I don't like the industrial stuff, but I think that needs to be more clearly defined or better, differently defined.
I understand the not splitting Hillsdale Lake. I just think that putting it down as a 10-year plan, it's overly ambitious, and I think we've already got our voters laughing at us now. I think it's gonna create more laughter and,
Who's laughing at us?
oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
I mean, there's like
Oh,
5
gosh.
people on Facebook. I mean,
I don't
if
do-
you look, if you
oh.
follow the stuff, it's not really. the
I don't.
city. There's just a few people.
Answer
who
that
do
is get
this.
off social media.
So I do have a question. So, you know, I had asked, the city staff and Amy was able to point me in the direction of like, you know, the road plans, right? So 191st isn't even slated to get repaired until 2025. Those are that's one of our main roads that goes to our elementary school, a middle school, getting over to Ridgeview for our high school. Like those roads really need to be repaired now. Like, I mean, I find a little bit of a problem with considering proposing this to our community when we're not taking care of kind of like what was stated before. We're not taking care of what we have right now.
Right.
Our roads in town are not getting taken care of. So I don't understand. It's hard for me because I do see what you're saying. It's
get it,
like
yeah.
like Hillsdale Lake is a great asset. It's so close. I mean, I live down in the Hillsdale area. Like I would love to see that be part of Spring Hill. So I'm struggling with that.
I think, and I'll jump in here too, because I think the concern with some of the maintenance and addressing what's here in our backyard too, I think that can be addressed through the CIP. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think before we worry about putting too much money out here, it's presented to us every year, the CIP, and what the plans are and where those monies are going. So if they're gonna put monies towards improving a road down by Hillsdale and we see that as a line item, we can strike that and say, no, put it up to 223rd. So there are opportunities for us to address those needs.
Right, and guys, this doesn't commit money anywhere. I'm gonna look back, because our finance director's here tonight, she's nodding, so, there we go, it's good to have that backup. This is not committing us to go build a bunch of roads or an overpass out there. What this is saying is just like, hey, these are the areas we think we might grow. And if we don't get out there, we don't get out there. But it's sort of we want it out there as guidance for staff in the city as opposed to just tightening this area in. And then what happens when people come to the city with an idea of coming in and it's outside our future growth area, and staff's in a position of saying, well, we don't really have any guidance on this because our governing body and our planning commission and our comp plan don't really tell us what is out there. So right now we're talking size. The next question is the use in that size, but those two eventually go hand in hand and tell staff when these people ask about coming in, what do we do with them? What do we tell them? Because rarely do people come to the city and say, I want to annex in, and you just tell me what my land should be, and I'll rezone it to whatever you want. It would probably make Pat's job a lot easier if they did. So if you're listening, feel free to do that. But, part of this is just kind of giving us the broadest possible use, and then we can narrow it in as the facts come to us.
So if, say someone right out south of our, in the Hillsdale area, and they're like, we heard you, we want to annex in, we've got a chunk of land. What is our immediate cost? What's our immediate, capital expenditure, I guess, basically, to bring them in as far as, do we need to start providing sewers for them and police services for them? And
Service and streets, no sewers, and
Okay.
sewers available.
Right.
And there's still a cost to it, but yes, if it is a voluntary annexation, we're not obligated. Police, obviously, and road repairs, and sometimes actually, we don't even annex the roads. We don't like to not do that because there's future problems.
That's where the county and the city come in.
Right, but future problems, and we eventually go and annex it anyway, and it's a whole nother big mess, so,
For another day.
just costs us more engineering fees. But, so,
Yeah, and look, if somebody on the south side of Hillsdale tomorrow called us and said we're ready to come in, we can't really take that anyway. We've got to be contiguous with that land. So this isn't saying in 3 weeks we're going to have 400 acres south of the lake. It's just saying at some point, if we work that way, that'd be great. But, if no one wants to come in, then
Well, and
They're not coming
if we're
in.
gonna do this, I'd like to see what Grant was mentioning, that you would have map areas more defined within.
well, Just spoke about that
Well,
earlier.
yeah, but I'm just saying,
in adding
multiples,
those
not
to-
just one.
Yeah, no, different areas that
Is all of this
Different
area
areas that-
part of some city or some of it county? Does everything belong to a Curtin city?
No.
Does that make sense?
It would all be,
Most of
yeah.
Just
We
flat out.
we don't identify any growth area that's part of another city. So
Okay.
we're not identifying, hey, we're gonna go
Okay.
take this from Olathe, because then the war, you just talked about, then it is actual war.
Right, so
It's a land
Hillsdale is not an actual incorporated city.
they are,
Not-
Okay,
that's correct. I
Good
see what
question,
you're
though.
saying.
Good question.
Good question.
Lewisburg is.
I know, it's Lewisburg.
we're a township, I believe.
Yeah,
They have a
they're
cemetery
in a
a
town.
lot.
Everybody's in a township, but yes.
So I think this question still is, are we good with this
Yeah.
growth area or not?
It appears the majority would say that we go ahead with this growth area. And so what we really need to look at next, the next meeting is, or if you wanna have a special meeting in between there, is these zoning areas. Or use areas, I'm sorry, the use areas. There's been some mention of along the railroads and things like that. If you can look at that and take a look at
I'm okay
it.
with that industrial along the railroad, I think that's exactly
So-
what we need to follow is, it's been good so far for Spring Hill, why not?
I think we need to have some mixed multi-use in there. I
Right.
think that
Yeah,
some of these
So-
areas it's too heavy and the environmental for.
But that's a perfect way to,
That-
you have an industrial and then go mixed use right next to it, I
I,
think that's.
I think one of the things that,
Are we talking that
we
tonight
oughta-
or are we doing that?
we oughta-
Okay.
yeah, no, but one of the things that we also want to think about is the environmental impact. Especially if you have now chosen to take on Hillsdale Lake. It's already has a nitrate problem and things of that nature. So that's something we'll need to consider, and I would like to consider it for all the areas that, what's this doing to the environmental areas, so.
What's our agenda look like next month?
Well, I don't think we have anything at all except this.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if this isn't something we wanna tackle tonight, I mean, we're running tight on time, but why don't you guys all see this? I mean, put some thought into ideas of what you would wanna see. Where do we want industrial? Where do we want the mixed use? Where do we want the heavier, denser residential? Where do we wanna reserve out the single family? You know, the reason you all see industrial along railroads a lot is because industrial uses wanna then go to the railroad and then get their own rail spur to get in there. And if they're too far from the railroad, it doesn't make sense. So that's why that ends up, is that fair in that area? And candidly, less people wanna live next to a railroad track and it ends up being residential or, industrial anyway. So that's part of why the purple is where it is on here.
So my question for Shockey is, what's our next step here? What is your next step with planning commission? Is it just verbiage and text from here on out, or is there interactive meetings, or what? Are you done with planning? I mean, what's our next?
Yeah, will you
step
be here
with
for
Shockey?
chapter 6 next month?
I'm 5.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we kind of need to put our heads together with staff. It seems like there's an additional meeting that we might need to have in between this one and going to city council, and then there's also an open house with the public so that they can view it as well. So that's all prior to like finalizing everything.
That's why this future land growth is important, because we do have another meeting, with public or something, don't we?
Yeah,
Meeting.
yeah, we have
I
an
know.
open house.
Okay, open house, there you go. So this is important to have this completed for open house, for sure.
Right.
So,
So if we have any comments on these chapters, we email them to you, Amy?
oh, yeah, please.
Will the chapters be presented at open house as well?
We can, yeah.
So the theory was the framework, which is included in the chapters, would definitely be on big boards so everyone could read them. And then we will have draft copies of all of the chapters that people could look at as well. It's a pretty lengthy document to, sit down and read through. So that's why we kind of break them out into separate areas.
Will there be more specificity in the document that you now have? I mean, what we've seen today, the chapters? I mean, because I quite frankly have a problem with words like explore an opportunity. To me, they're too vague. Promote something, establish something.
Yeah, so
I mean,
usually we
you
leave them
can't measure
intentionally.
some of these words, so you don't know whether the city's headed in the right direction or the wrong direction. I mean, I can,
And sometimes they're intentionally vague just so that as planning commissions change out, it's kind of those interpretations will also be modified. We can add any specificity that you'd like, but that's why as our first draft, we kind of leave it that way. And then the areas that you want to hone in on, we can beef up that
I
language.
agree though, because if it's an objective, it's supposed to be measurable.
That you shared, these
right.
6 chapters?
Yeah, so they'll go in and we have graphics, and that'll go in with all of that, and then the mapping.
It's real specific.
I'm curious who Olivet is.
Me too. I'm like.
Is that another
what's all
town?
that? Under
10%
education.
of Olivet's adults have achieved graduate or professional degree.
Oh,
I felt like this was just, I've done it
Yep.
before. It's an old document, you just go like, replace Olivet with Spring Hill. But
no,
it missed that one. It's like, who's Olivet?
Season.
I definitely grabbed language from Olivet's, but it was an entirely new document. So it wasn't just anything that was a boilerplate. We do have some really good language that we try to replicate, but everything should be unique to Spring Hill. So I'll take a look at that one.
That's in chapter 5.
Gotcha.
Chairman,
For
I think
education.
that one way that we can hone in on or
Yeah, it's just.
focus on what you're talking about to get away from the gray areas or what the language is through the use of these areas of specificity, yep, on taking and having those areas, pinpoint areas. Like Josh was talking about and some of you is, this area here, we want to see that the aesthetics are brick. Let's just use that for example. And that would be a way where you can still leave the document in the vagueness, but then have your areas for what you really wanna see in those areas.
I see there's a lot more work that's gotta be done before it's ready for city council.
Yeah, there is. I mean, and don't forget your feedback. I mean, a lot of you have been giving good feedback, so.
Not to, bring up a sore subject, but on that chapter 5.2, under future land use, I think it is, industrial, I think we need to include truck stops. So that the public is aware that if we have an industrial area, that it could include a truck stop.
That's already-
It's in your.
It doesn't say
That's
that.
already in the.
No, it's
city-
in the
that's in
zoning.
city zoning
Zoning.
code already.
So when it says industrial, then they need to go to the zoning book
We
and
don't-
look it into it.
We don't and can't put into our comp plan what's included in
Split.
industrial, what's in residential, what's in commercial. That,
But you do. It says light industrial and manufacturing use,
But not
distribution,
specific- not
construction,
specific
warehouse.
businesses.
right, so there's
Yeah,
gonna be
but it-
examples in your
That's
comp
in
plan,
zoning.
but if there's people out there who don't know what that means, they need to go to our city code, because we can't change the comp plan every time we change the city code.
Okay,
The city code is gonna prevail, because the comp plan is
Okay.
your governing document, yeah.
okay,
But that is.
thank you.
Thank you, good question.
My mouse won't work, Debbie. Oh,
I'll show you.
All right, well, thanks so much for your time, and we'll get back with you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming in.
Thanks.
Any announcements?
No, what was shown on your packets, just the items, we'll go over at the next
Okay.
meeting.
I hear a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
That's
Second
fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.